Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the newest episode of the Theater Enthusiast podcast. I'm so excited. I even said this to the guests before. I'm so happy we made this work. It's been a long time in the making getting them onto this podcast. And I was very fortunate enough to get to work with them during the pandemic. Even before we started, I said working with her was one of my favorite things I got to do during the pandemic. She is an Olivier, super fancy Olivier Award winning actress. She's making such a beautiful face right now while I say it. She is Broadway's auntie. She's a queen. She's she's wonderful. Please welcome Lesli Margherita. Woo, woo. Yep, woo, woo, woo.
I hate introductions. I hate introductions of myself. And so I literally hide.
Do you want me to be like, she's here, this person?
Yes.
But like, she likes Star Wars, Muppets, and Disney. Lesli.
Yes, that's the best.
I will say, I did tell you, I'm a huge Disney fan. One of my all-time favorites in Disney World. I will admit I haven't been to Land, don't judge. But
okay.
One of my favorite all-time things in Disney World is Muppets 3D.
I mean, come on. Of course.
It is one of my faves.
Genius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I'm not
we need to talk about the Disney some more because
we will. I mean, I have nothing to do tonight. I'm a lady of a certain age and I'm super single. So I'm in my apartment trying to figure out what to watch on TV. So like that's my Saturday night.
I mean, I'm married and that's what we do as well. So
yeah.
Just figure out what to watch.
Yeah, I also just love how my Instagram discovery page now is mostly like, you're single, you'll find the right person, or it's okay to be single. And I'm just like, I'm like, can't you just show me like anything having to do with like Harry Styles on my discovery page?
They listen because
Instagram. They listen. Yeah.
So now just start just saying Harry Styles, and then watch.
Harry Styles, hot men. Who's out there? Disney, Lesli Margherita. There we go. I'll just say
you don't want that one.
Like appearing on my Discover You page as Princess of Emojiland. People thinking you're Lady Gaga, which by the way, I love. So let's talk social really quickly because there is something you did. I do not have TikTok, but I always feel like TikTok ends up on Instagram. And you did a TikTok that if I ever need a laugh, I will go back to, and it is you singing songs from different shows that you do not know. And it is one of my favorite things.
It was a filter.
Yeah.
That was like, how many songs can you sing from these shows? Mm-hmm. And I don't know a lot of musical theater. I'm like, I obviously love musicals. I don't know a lot. I don't listen to musicals. Yeah. Just because I just don't. And so there were shows like Great Comet that I didn't even get to see because that was during Matilda. And I don't actively go and listen to things unless like I see somebody sing something at a concert or blah, blah, blah. So I knew none of them, and just decided to make them up. And I think they were pretty great songs.
Yeah, I agree. I do love how you mentioned Great Comet because my laptop is currently on 2 coffee table books, and one of them is the Great Comet coffee table book. And it is one of my favorite musicals. So when you were like, I don't know Great Comet, I was like, oh, it's my favorite. Oh, I'm not saying like it's a bad thing, but like, when someone's like, I don't know what this is, and you're just like, oh, cool, that's my favorite musical. And then you're just like,
I just we were running at exactly the same time and I never saw it.
Okay.
I legitimately couldn't tell you a single song from it.
That's fine. Listen, there are slime tutorials, and I know you know this because you made a slime for.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I should watch it at some point.
Well, listen, like we just said,
I don't like to watch things on video either. Like I don't like slime tutorials because it's just not the same experience.
Yeah. Oh, we can get into the whole like theater slime.
Oh, we have to because I have been misunderstood on that subject.
We'll talk. It's funny because like when I got interviewed for a podcast, they were asking me about like theater etiquette and stuff, and I was just like, my biggest thing I have is turn off your fucking phones.
Yeah. Yeah. I made the mistake of saying that I hated bootlegs, and then the children turned on me. And I was like, you didn't understand, you didn't listen to the reason why. And then suddenly I was an elitist who didn't want anyone buying, who could, like, elitist who only rich people can see theater. And I was like, you never mind. It's not even worth explaining why I hate them. But yes, we can absolutely get into why I don't enjoy them.
You can talk about it now since we're on the topic.
Oh, well, for me, I'm like, if you want to watch a bootleg, great. That's fine. Don't film in front of me, because I'll like put the camera down. And besides, it's so annoying to the performers. But the real reason why I hate them is because this generation coming up, and I love to help this generation coming up. But what is happening is they have no original ideas of their own. People are watching a bootleg, copying somebody's choreography, copying someone's performance exactly, which is also illegal, especially choreography or set design. But for young performers, I coach so many of them that do exactly what somebody did on a bootleg. And that is the way that art will die. Just because I did it doesn't mean that's the best way to do something. Make your own freaking choices. Yeah. And so I hate that kids, because back in the olden days, I had a CD. I had no visuals. So I decided how I was going to be Cheetah.
Yeah.
And then if I ever got to see the show, or, when I saw the performance on like YouTube or like a Tony performance, there were times where I was like, not how I would have done it. Like, and I say that with all like delusion. But it really is a bummer that there is no creativity, because I see kids going, I just played Mrs. Wormwood and loud is the hardest thing to do. And I was like, well, what is your loud? And they were like, exactly what you did. And I said, well, that's your choreographer's fault, because they stole someone's work. Instead of, they're an up and coming choreographer, I'm going to try and do something different. And many do. Yeah. But a real problem with these kids, it has sucked the life out of any creativity. Yeah. And also, I really don't care if you watch it. I see so many the slime tutorials. I don't really care. If that's the only way you can see it, great. Just don't steal the work. And the other thing is, don't then take a video without seeing it in person and go on TikTok and make a comparison of, this person sucked doing this role, this person's better in this riff. That's not what theater is about. And it's not what those should be used for. It just creates like an ick for me. So yeah, I could care less if you watch them. Watch them, then make a choice.
Yeah, no, I had a conversation with another performer I had on my podcast about like replacements and coming into shows, their interpretation of it. And I said, like, I have this thing where I have to remind myself, because you're so used to a particular person's performance, that you're like, no, this is a brand new person. This is their take on the role. And, not everybody can like be Aaron Tveit and sing Roxanne the way he can. And the
way that they do it.
Yeah. And the Christians that I've seen have done it fabulously.
Yeah. And it's not to say like you don't have to like a replacement. That's your opinion. Somebody's going to anyway. So big deal. But like it's a replacement. And some shows, are very limited in what you can do as a replacement. But other shows,
I've heard
it's not going to be a carbon copy. And I know that I could not replace somebody and do exactly what they did. Like I can't go into a show like that, because it's just not who I am, and I'd be miserable. And the company.
You can't go into Moulin Rouge and sing Roxanne exactly like Aaron Tveit.
It's a no-win. It's a no-win, because it's so difficult. So that's the real reason I don't like them. Yeah. Seeing something on a grainy videotape is also, you cannot say that you saw it on Broadway. You cannot. That's not you didn't see it on Broadway.
No, I mean, I saw that. Yeah, like I told you before we started, like I used to do merchant shows, and one of the shows that I worked at, I slid a little, was The Normal Heart. And I saw it in bits and pieces. So and I keep a list. I'm such a nerd.
But you did see it on Broadway. You were
I was in the theater, but I didn't see the entirety of the show. So I didn't write it down as a show that I saw because I
Ah,
feel like I would have to see it from beginning to end in
that's
order
cool.
for me to be like, I saw the show. I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely saw bits and pieces. I tried not to watch the end, so I wasn't selling merch like with
Right.
tears
Oh my
running
God, right?
down my face. Although I will say, people leaving the theater at the end of the show, it was very somber. And
Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I just remembered this one girl, she needed to exchange a t-shirt and she comes to me just hysterical having seen the show.
Oh,
She's like, "Can I exchange this t-shirt?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. What size do you need?" I didn't laugh, but yeah.
yeah, it's a different thing. And I think I got that from my dad, who's now passed away, and he never saw me on the West End and he never saw me on Broadway because he was ill. And for him, I remember asking, like, I have uh, this on video.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't want to see it because I know what you do. I
Mhm.
have it in my mind, know exactly what you do, but I don't need to see a crappy version. That's not seeing my daughter on Broadway. That's seeing a videotape of somebody, and that made so much sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the main reason is the lack of creativity and what we're doing regionally to these kids, especially if you're a director or choreographer and you're stealing. Don't do that. It's one thing when I was a kid and growing up, I love learning original choreography to stuff,
Mhm.
like just to learn it.
Yeah.
But then don't put it on in your local theater and claim that it's your work.
Yeah.
And that goes for performances too. Make your own choices. You can, I mean, listen, my acting teacher is always like, steal from the best. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Steal, but then make it your own.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, then
I don't know
you're
if we should
giving a
make
copy.
like change like be
Inspired
inspired
by.
by your performance. I love how you because before we started too, you also have on your website the "Here's What I Know" list, which I call your TED Talk.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things you mentioned on there. And like in all caps, you wrote,
yeah.
you are your own thing. You were this. And not to like keep bringing up this podcast I was interviewed on. Thank you. You can find it on my website and my
Famous,
Instagram.
famous.
Thank you. Website, the theater enthusiast site.com. Thank you.
Oh,
Trying to
great. That's a great one.
yeah,
Yeah.
trying to get more I worked very hard on that website. Please look at it. It is
It's a great
gold.
one. It's great. Yeah.
Yes. Leslie is currently on there right now looking. Yeah, it's great. See that headshot? That's you. No.
Hi.
Yeah,
Great sign.
yeah, great. It was wonderful. But I talked about Oliver asked me advice that I heard to blah blah blah. And I said, there is one thing that I love that Laura Linney said, and it's a like people are not just one thing, they're many things. And so I think also that's important for young performers with what you're saying, like don't copy, like make something your own because you're your own person. And I remember when I was a kid and like my mom's like, all right, you enjoy theater, like here's an acting class you can do. And my sister was also like in the same company at this place called CAP, somewhere on Long Island. It's like a theater, whatever it was. And she was also doing class, but she's older, so she was in like a different class than I was, and she was doing a monologue and I wanted to do it and I spoke to like the head of the theater about it and he's like, you two are totally different performers. It's
Yeah.
totally fine that you do the same monologue and you're not in the same class, so it doesn't matter.
It's never going to be the same. It's never
Yeah,
going to your choices are never going to be hers.
yeah, exactly. And I will say that when I was in college, I had to do a scene with someone and because they were limited on boys, he was like very adamant about doing the same scene as somebody else. And I said, no, because I'm afraid I'm going to end up copying that person and I don't want to do that. So I was so
Yeah.
afraid
Right.
that the performance was going to rub off on me that I was like, no, I want to do a different scene. And he was
Yeah.
such a bitch about it. He ended up not being my scene partner.
Oh my God.
He's like, I'm also doing this show and I'm doing this. And I'm like, that's not my problem.
Okay. That has nothing to do with me. No,
That,
it's I don't if I'm going in for a show, I don't watch videos of it. I don't watch previous versions of it. I don't listen to previous versions of it unless I need to learn a song, in which case I try not to listen to the person that is doing it.
Mhm. Yeah.
just want to make my own choice. And then the job of the director, when you get in there, no, that's wrong. I mean, Mrs. Wormwood, I auditioned when I first met Matthew Warchus, the director. I made Mrs. Wormwood a raging drunk. And I went through the whole thing, and Matthew's very like stoic, and he was like, well, that was fun. That's completely wrong, but I love that you took a swing. And he goes, now do it like this. But he liked the fact that I went completely different. And I wouldn't have known that had I watched The Woman in London.
Yeah.
I would have known what they wanted, but I can't put that. It's mainly for me. I can't put the pressure of, oh God, they're genius. I could never do that. Well, if I don't see it, I don't have the pressure.
Yeah.
So
hold on. Sorry, I'm so verklempt. I'm so excited that we're talking. Did you see the movie musical of Matilda?
Oh, I did, and I loved it so much.
I cried so much.
The whole thing.
So
I
good.
did. I mean, I wept through the whole thing. And you know what? That team is so special. And when that movie was being made, they reached out to the originals, and we're like, we're going with all Brits. We just want you to know how special you are. And that was the way, because I know a lot of movies that come from musicals, they don't always do that. And it's a real bummer because they kind of just, you feel like it negates your put. And I just love that show so much. And I thought the movie was so different than the show is, but still had the spirit. I've seen it a bunch. I like wept watching it.
I feel like there's some movie musicals nowadays that aren't, and I'm not saying like they're all bad, but they're just not, it's not, I don't want to say the same, I'll just say they're not good. But Matilda, I really wish Matilda got so much more recognition than it did, because
I know.
I always like, even when I talk about the song When I Grow Up, like that one song, it just makes me like so weepy.
Yeah, totally.
And I thought they did such a beautiful job with it. And also just, I mean, how can you not love Emma Thompson as,
oh my God, I know.
Yeah.
Like genius. And I was like, okay, let's see what she does. She was genius.
Yeah.
I loved it. And you just have to look at those things as they're different entities.
Yeah.
If you want to see the musical, then watch a slime tutorial. If you want to see that, but it's a totally different entity. And the same thing with musicals being made from movies. You can't go to the musical expecting the same experience and then be angry, because it's just not the same medium. It's not,
Yeah. I will say, before the pandemic, I was going to see Sing Street at New York Theater Workshop, and I never saw the movie.
Oh yeah.
My friends, I said to my friend, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to watch the movie before I see it. And he goes, don't watch the movie before you see the musical. Just go see the musical. Like, don't even worry about seeing the movie. So now I'm just like, now that I have the musical in my head, I'm like, it's not gonna be as good as the musical because I saw the musical first. So
totally.
yeah.
When you watch it eventually, if you ever do, it's just going to be totally different.
Yeah.
You compartmentalize. Yeah. Even with like Wicked, like everyone went nuts when the Wicked trailer came out, and I love Wicked. Like I've seen it so many times. And you got to remember, it's a different thing. People are like, why was Dorothy in the blah? I was like, we don't know what they're doing. We don't know if that was just for the promo so that people will go see it and that's what they know, but people are like up in arms about it. I'm like, just hang on.
A bigger issue that they're making it into 2 films.
Oh yeah.
That's my biggest
issue. At the time.
They're like, oh, because Wicked is so epic, it can't be fit into. Yes, Funny Girl is like 3 hours. The Flower Moons movie is like 3.5.
Yeah, totally.
Do what they did with Funny Girl, put an intermission in, let people pee, and then go back. It's
all
not
those old
in America.
All those musicals that I love, those old movie musicals, Gypsy and Funny Girl, and like they all had an intermission. West Side Story had an intermission. I was like, okay, great. Yeah, that's how you do it.
This is not a musical. I mean, it ended up being a musical at some point, but 10 Commandments, 2 VHS tapes. There you go. Titanic, 2 VHS tapes. Yeah. I did. I mean, I think because everybody's so excited about the Wicked movie. And just like the fact that they cast, I mean, people are like, Ariana Grande is a pop star, but she started in theater. Like she was in 13 the musical, and she's like a huge theater nerd. So I just love how they have theater performers in the lead roles. And
and the thing is, that people don't understand that, as someone lucky enough to do things on TV and film. You have to understand, and sadly, Broadway is this way now too. If you don't have a name like Ariana Grande, no one is going to see it except theater kids, and that is such a small percentage of what they need to make back money for the movie overseas, whatever. And Wicked is its own phenomenon, but that's still not enough for somebody in who could care less about musicals, but they might care about Ariana Grande. So it's, you have to, and I say it all the time when they make these movie musicals and they're like, why isn't the original person? I'm like, because they don't bring in ticket sales.
Yeah.
And you just have to look at it that way. Even Cynthia Erivo, who's phenomenal, isn't a household name, but Ariana Grande is.
Yeah.
Michelle Yeoh is. Jeff Goldblum is. Like, you have to have those people.
Jonathan Bailey has that, the Bridgerton.
Yes.
Yeah.
And me as well. It's not me too.
It's funny because I was in London over the summer and they did a off-West End production of The Shape of Things. And I was lucky enough to get to interview the cast, and one of the cast members is on Bridgerton. So that is my most listened to podcast to this day. We didn't even talk about Bridgerton on the podcast.
And then I'm a huge Bridgerton fan as well.
Oh, same. I don't like.
I had read all of those books. I'm a book girl also. Like I'm a total nerd. But I had read all those books years ago.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite Bridgerton story?
It's coming up. I don't want to spoil it for people. It's Francesca's.
Okay. You know what I find so funny about the new Francesca? Because and again, I have not read the books, but so the girl they had cast as Francesca, she had like scheduling conflicts. So she ended up like leaving the series. So she was hardly on it. Then they cast this new Francesca, and the glow up that they gave this Francesca compared to the old Francesca.
She had to, because of her story. If they are faithful to the books, it is spicy.
Yeah.
And
no, I looked into the stories of the other siblings, so I know what's up.
Yeah. Benedict's is the worst, and his was supposed to be second.
Third. And
they skipped over it, as they should have, because I hope they rewrite it, because it's just like,
oh no, I read what happened, and I'm like, this is like, so I don't want to say like okay, I will admit, finally I did read Colin and Penelope's, because
it's great.
Yes, I read that one. But like it was written 20 years ago, and as someone who's like an older female who's very like, no, honey, I was just like, the men are such bastards. Just like, how dare you this? And I'm like, calm down, sir. Like,
and also they were then, so still stands.
And then I read like snippets of Benedict's story and like what happens, and I was like, you're a terrible human.
Yeah.
Just like not great.
I loved Anthony's book. And I was very worried that they were going to mess it up. And I loved it. And it was totally different in the book, and I ended up loving it. But yeah, you just, again, you have to be like, well, it's not going to be exact.
Yeah.
Stuff in that book, because that's my probably second favorite book. There was stuff in that book where I was like, how can you leave that out? But that happens with everything.
Yeah. And I think people forget where it's based on. It's based on a source material, because there are things that you can't do in film, you can't do in television, television, you can't do on stage. Like, I was very excited about Conversations with Friends coming out, so I read the book before. And then also the same thing with Daisy Jones and the Six, and I loved Daisy Jones and the Six. And one of my favorite movies is Almost Famous, so it's like, oh, give me like 1970s rock, I'm there. And
that was another one I was like, please don't ruin this book, and I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. I mean,
the music was phenomenal. It's like, it's Fleetwood Mac. It literally, I mean, that's what it's based on. But
I'm not even joking. It's on my
I have it
like on my iTunes. It's one of I listened to the Aurora soundtrack and
Oh
Harry
yeah.
Styles. That's all I listened to.
It's an amazing record. And
Yeah.
that show didn't get enough hype either. I was like, what? And they were
Well,
all so good.
they got nominations and everything, but they didn't win
Yeah.
anything. I really wanted it to win the Grammy, but it was up against Barbie, so it
Oh
didn't.
yeah, 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 which I
And
loved.
yeah, I really wish Sam Claflin, I can never pronounce
Oh,
his name. I really wished he would have gotten the Emmy nomination, but he
he
didn't.
was so good.
So
So
good.
good. Whatever. I know.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
there.
I love that.
And they were gonna go on tour, but then the strike happened.
I know. I would have gone. I totally would have gone.
I would have gone by myself because nobody I know watched it.
I would have gone with you. I would have gone.
Great. I would have flown to California, or you would have come to New York. One of us would have been bi-coastal, and
I
we
mean,
would,
listen, I'm pretty bi-coastal. I'm in New York every like 3 weeks.
yeah. Oh
No
my God,
joke.
let's get together and we'll just like chat
I'm
over
there.
or tea. I don't drink coffee, but whatever you want.
Yeah.
We'll
Did you
find,
read Evelyn Hugo?
I haven't. I do have the book though.
Gotta read it. That's
I
another
do.
one of
I'm in
my
like,
favorite
which one I'm like completely obsessed with as of recently, like since I read it and I'm so excited for the movie to come out, is The Idea of You.
Oh, oh, oh yeah. I don't know. I'm not convinced. When I saw it was Anne Hathaway, I was like, well, I don't know. I love little Harry Styles supposed to be
Oh yeah,
Nicholas
Nicholas
red,
Galitzine.
white, red, white, and royal blue.
Mhm.
But I'm not convinced about her. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I hope they don't mess it up. That book was a little just writing wise for me was like,
I
I
get
don't
it.
I love the book, but it wasn't like the best prose.
I'm not a big book reader, so I read it because the movie was coming out.
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
No, I read it drives my husband nuts. I read like so much.
Listen, I'm always in the market for a good smut novel. So if you know anything,
I'm a big fantasy girl too, like big
I
sci-fi
did
fantasy
you read
girl.
The Court of
Of course.
Roses?
But like years ago before it was a TikTok thing.
Like I started to read it and I just can't get into the first book.
Mm. It takes a minute. It takes a minute, but then you've got to read like 8 books.
Mm.
Those and Throne of Glass. I love that author. Yeah, it's so funny, like, because I am on TikTok now and seeing what these women are now reading, I was like, where were you 10 years ago?
Yeah.
It's all
Oh, here.
now I love that they're like
Well,
they're now
I have younger siblings and they're going to be 18 in August. And about a year plus ago, my sister's like, oh, the song Cotton Eye Joe. And I'm like, that was out when I was younger than you. She's like, how do you know the dance? I'm like, I was a preteen teenager when that song came out. And you're just discovering this because of TikTok.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we have talked about nothing having to do with your career,
Ugh.
well, who would you have had play Solène? Who would you have cast in that part other than Anne Hathaway?
Um,
Other than
there's
yourself?
there's something about well, clearly they're not doing what the book was because in the
Yeah.
book she's like this, this intercontinental like art dealer and she's very fat, and it in the book it seemed like I mean in the movie they made her something else. So it
Yeah.
might work. I just pictured somebody a little more not so American, even though
Yeah.
she's American, but
Yeah.
like I
Well, no,
don't know.
she's French. Her parents are French, but she
Right.
was like
So
raised
like
in America.
somebody a little more international, I
Yeah,
guess.
I
I
get it.
don't know. Anne Hathaway's always good, so I'm sure
Yeah.
she'll
I
be
will say I
great.
saw she has this movie coming out with Jessica Chastain calls a mother's I think it's called Mother's Intuition.
Jessica Chastain, I would say, would have been more that character. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
We'll see. It comes out in
Yeah.
May. You and I can talk about it like when it comes out, be like, I like how I'm just like texting you. I don't have your phone number. We'll DM, we'll email. Like, what did you think?
Yeah, yeah.
I will say, speaking of Nicholas Galitzine, I'm also a huge history nerd. So he has this mini series coming out called Mary and George about
Oh, yes. Oh,
oh
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For
give
sure.
me like a good historical drama and I will just
Oh,
like
oh, come on.
this is me drilling.
I have all the shows and books for you then.
Yeah, let's be friends. I like they even had this show on Stars about Elizabeth when she was like a teenager right after Henry VIII died.
Did you do all of those the like the Spanish Queen and the yeah.
Yeah, I will say I
Yeah.
have to go back and watch The Serpent Queen because I just stopped watching it and I was like, I'll go back to this eventually. And I knew that was going to get a second season. I just had an inkling that Elizabeth was going to get canceled because I loved it so much, and that's what usually happens. But I was lucky enough to interview Jamie Parker and like talk to him about it, and he got like so excited. I was like, "Yeah, so Elizabeth, so the show you did, Elizabeth." And he goes, "Oh," I was like, "I loved it so much."
Oh my God, yeah. It's great. Yep.
And they left it on such a cliffhanger, but we know what happens. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now that we just chatted about all things, I
All
always
things.
all things. Where are you from?
California, Northern California. Which is shocking to everyone
They think you're
because
from New
like,
Jersey.
yeah, I'm such a Jersey girl and own that.
I almost wore a leopard.
Oh my God.
My friend gifted me like a leopard, not like a faux snuggie a few years ago, and I almost wore it for you, but I was like,
Oh,
if it makes you feel better, my slippers are leopard.
oh my God, thanks.
You're welcome. So I almost did it, but I was like, I would like to look not as cozy.
But I completely own like the mob wife aesthetic. I'm Italian, like it just kind of works. But I grew up on a cattle ranch and I was a complete tomboy until I was 12 when we moved off of the cattle ranch. And then I went completely the opposite direction and became so princessy. And now like hate the outdoors, hate hate nature. But yeah, it was crazy. Grew up in California, um, Fremont, which is kind of like it's Bay Area, but closer to San Jose. I started doing shows as a kid. I think my first show I was 7. Annie was coming through town and they were auditioning like hundreds of girls. And I was like, might as well go because the girl on my soccer team is going, and I ended up looking.
You're like, sorry, Nancy.
I literally, my mom was like, what is happening? And then I just did shows all over, like professional shows and school shows, community shows. I worked at I performed at the theme park, Great America, all through high school. And yeah, I was just like always did it. But I was also very much involved in school. Like I was the homecoming queen, like cheerleading captain, like all that. So I was very much like that girl, but was very inclusive. I was that girl, but I was not a mean girl.
Yeah. You weren't Regina George or anything.
I was not. No.
Yeah. So what got you interested in performing? Just the whole like, oh, I'll audition for Annie, and then you got it and you're like, this is it. I'm done.
Well, my parents, I'm the youngest of 4, and I'm youngest by a lot. Like the next oldest is like 12 years. So I was kind of alone because my sisters were grown and in college when I was 6 and 7. And now they'd call it ADHD. Now, like I can say I have ADHD, but as a kid, they didn't know what that was then. They called it hyperactivity. And so because I'm always like just always doing something. So my mom was a dancer growing up. And so she put me in dance class when I was 4, and I just loved it. And was like in dance class every day. And my ballet teacher was choreographing a local production of Oliver. Yes, Oliver. And she was like, we need some boys. So come and audition. I had never sing happy birthday. And what came out was like the exact same voice that I have now, this very loud, like belty. And I remember everyone being like, where did that come from? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I sing. And so I did that and I had a blast. And then my friend was like, oh my God, the tour of Annie's coming through. We got to audition, blah, blah, blah. And they needed kids for the San Jose part of it. And I went and ended up getting it and just like freaking loved every second of it. And I knew even at like 8, I was going to do this, like for sure. I knew that I wanted to do it. Yeah. And I just then just kept doing it, kept doing it. And my parents are not stage parents. They never once like pushed me into anything. In fact, they were very much the opposite. There was a time I thought I was going to get to go to the Mickey Mouse Club. And my parents were like, you need to stay in school instead. And I was devastated because I wanted to go to Florida and be Mickey Mouse Club.
You'd be like, I could have worked with Brittany and
I
Jesse.
know. Well, and then like years later, ended up doing a movie with JC.
Oh yeah, opening night.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have not seen that movie, but I've seen like kind of the track. I feel like I could be wrong. And again, I say this because I did not see it, but I feel like it's an acid trip. And I don't know if that's like the correct thing to say about it.
No, it is.
Okay.
People still come up to me and know like monologues from that movie. It is something that either is somebody's complete guilty pleasure, or you go, wow, I don't need to see that again. It was blast, but yeah, it's like people love it. People love it. It's crazy.
Well, so you mentioned to me earlier before we started recording that you're an NSYNC person.
Oh yeah.
What was that like working with JC Chasez? Which, by the way, doesn't JC stand for JC Chasez? I don't think enough people talk about that. His name is Joshua Chasez, and he goes JC.
So
it's Chasez. So Joshua Chasez Chasez.
J squared. I don't know.
Yeah.
JC squared. It was really funny because my husband, we shot in Mexico City. We were going to be there for like 6 weeks. And my husband came out because I had, when you film stuff, you don't film every day. You film a couple of days, then you've got maybe like 3 days off on the weekend. So my husband came out because we were going to explore Mexico City. And I remember we shot over Thanksgiving. So everybody had Thanksgiving dinner together. And my husband was scream laughing because he knows that I love JC, and I hadn't met him yet. This was like a welcome Thanksgiving.
Is he your favorite member of NSYNC?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Was always a JC girl. Okay. Always. Like he's got the best voice, best one. Not a JT, a JC. And my husband was scream laughing because I was like, oh my God, he's right there. And my husband's like, I'm right here. but it was fun. No, he ended up being so nice, and he was out of his element. So it was kind of cool to see somebody who's so confident in what they do, not be, and learning. And he was so good too. He was just like natural, but like the nicest guy. And then, the more people that I meet in the business, and I have been in this business now 98 years, you realize that everybody is just normal. Like it is. I mean, there's some weirdos, but every person that is like a major superstar, everybody poops. So it's the same. Like,
yeah. I will say though, like with the whole like, oh my God, that person. And I have this too, because I mean, I know you, we work together, but before that, for me as like a theater fan too, and even like interviewing people who I've never met before, even though 99.9% of my interviews are all virtual, like I still get nervous, and I had to pretend that I'm like totally fine and cool. Like, oh, I'm interviewing Jamie Parker, and I'm a huge fan of the History Boys, and he was my favorite in the play, and he's like Harry, like it was a very big thing. I mean, I've had many, like Steve Kazee coming on my podcast was also like a big thing for me. And the fact I was like, and then I just had to be like, hi, how are you? It's nice to see you. But I
still do it.
Like freaking out. Like
I do it to people that I quote unquote know. Like I'm a massive Donna Murphy stan. Massive.
Yeah.
And she knew that when I was doing Matilda, because I would like post about it, and her assistant at the time like got in touch with me, and she came to my cabaret show, Donna Murphy, and like because she was kind enough to know that this little stan like worshipped her, and since then I've seen her a lot, and she'd comment, we're Instagram friends and blah blah. But to this day, I'm like, oh, I miss Murphy. She's like, Leslie, it's Donna. And to this day, and I'm a grown-ass adult, I'm like, but there's so many people I'm still like that. I could work with them for years and still be like,
yeah. And I think that's natural too. I mean, Yeah. I could just be like, oh yeah, I like know this person now. I just be
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, this person in my phone. Like I'm friends with someone and they know that I've done these readings and I worked with like a lot of Broadway people and I saw them like 2 weeks ago. And then and because of these readings, I have people's phone numbers. Doesn't mean I'm gonna like text them because in my mind, I'm like, they don't fucking know who I am. Like if I email them to come on my podcast, they're probably like, who is this person that's emailing me? Like, I don't, who is this
No.
person texting? So I always just like assume nobody knows who I am. And then I told her, I'm like, I have this person in my phone. And she's like, I hate you so much. I was like, okay. I was like, I wouldn't text them, but I'd email them, like, what up?
It's
Yeah.
always disappointing too when someone's not cool.
I tell a story on this podcast and I don't mention who it is
As she sips tea. Mhm.
out of my hot priest mug, always.
I know, I love it. Yeah.
Thank you. This is Neil. Yeah.
Oh,
This is I still have my hot priest prayer candle that I would always light.
yeah,
But I lit it so much that I can't light it anymore. So I just have my mug out.
yeah, it's
And I
good.
always used to say, hot priest is here to bless the pod. But I just drink out of my mug because I feel like it's a staple of my podcast. But there is a particular Broadway performer who I was a very big fan of, and they went into a long-running musical, and I went up to them at an after party, and they were such an asshole to me. And I was like, you are an asshole. And I have not been a fan of theirs. And there was even a reading that they would have been really good for during the pandemic. And I was like, absolutely not. This person will never be. I mean, because when I was directing them, I cast the musical. I mean, I cast the readings and I had my list of people, but um, I was like, I will never, nope.
And I'm always like, if somebody catches me on a bad day and I know it, because
Mhm.
I would say generally like extremely positive and cool, but there have been some gigs where just bad gig, bad timing, bad whatever. I'm very apologetic to be
Yeah.
like a human and whatever. But stuff like that is kind of inexcusable. Like you don't be a dick.
Yeah. Just don't be an asshole. Cause like I also say too, like I used to do front of house with merch, front of house people talk.
Oh
You
my
can't
God.
mention the name Jeremy Piven at the Barrymore Theater.
I
Like
mean, that.
I've heard so many
Yeah.
stories about things because front of house people talk. And they know if you're an asshole, they know if you're nice, security knows things, ticket takers know things, like people.
I talk
Well,
about this all the time because the crew are my favorite people
yeah,
and they will make your life miserable. If you are not kind
yeah,
to every, when you do a show, it's not just your cast, it
yeah,
is front of house, it is ushers, it is everybody on your crew is part of that cast. And if you're an asshole to any of those people,
mhm,
ugh, I can't stand it. You're doorman, you're what, like, whoever, I
yeah,
can't stand it.
yeah.
And I will say, those people, and I fully encourage it, will make your life a living hell
Hmm.
because they don't have the time. If you don't have the time for them, they don't have the time for you. And that's part of your show.
Yeah.
Matilda, we all would run through the lobby so many times during the show. Those merch people are our friends because
Yeah.
that's who we do. But there were some, that you look down on them and I'm like, oh no, oh no. It just makes me so angry. And I bring that to me in every job, even if I'm like a guest star on a TV show, those crew members, that's their house that I'm coming into.
Hmm.
On a tour, the crew that is there, you are visiting their house. And if
Hmm.
you aren't kind to those people, ugh,
Yeah.
it's just bad karma. And it's just, so I say the same. I'm gonna say it about social media too. Like
Hmm.
my favorite thing is when people post on social media, they're like, my mom always told me, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything nice at all. I'm like, you just fucking posted about you don't like this replacement of somebody. So then don't post it.
Yeah.
Actually do.
Yeah.
So I get really mad at that. And I'm sorry that you had that experience. But yeah, I had one of a very, very, very popular performer, and we did a concert together. And this person, after I sang, I came off stage and they went, well, that sounded like it hurt And I will never speak to this person. And they're very popular.
Was it Andrew Tober? No, I'm just joking.
No,
Tober, I'm joking. You would never
we love.
love. I only
But
say that because we did the
yeah,
reading with him. And
but
on,
those things, yeah,
ugh,
we love him. But those things I remember. And this
yeah.
is years later. And every time I see this person, I'm like, I remember exactly what you said to me. You
Mhm.
you chose cuntiness
Yeah.
instead of kindness, and not the good cuntiness. You chose
Listen,
the,
people remember things too.
oh,
Like I remember like over 10 years ago, like there was somebody who I thought I like got along with really well in college and I always thought I was nice to them. And then I saw them like after graduation, like a year or two later, and they're like, "Oh, I thought you were always like this to me." And I was like, "Really? I never
yeah,
because I was never purposely mean to anybody."
yeah,
Oh, and that's just like not in my nature. I think, God, this is so like, and people might disagree, but I think I'm very like kind-hearted to people. And
yeah,
like if
yeah,
I'm an asshole, it's never purposeful.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. It's just on the day, sometimes shit happens, but never on purpose.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I just be a nice person. I try, and especially nowadays with social media, I feel like these kids are just doomed. I'm like, please just choose kindness.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean don't have an opinion.
Yeah.
Your opinions are fine, but there's a way to have an opinion and not be a dick.
Yeah. I mean, I also agree with the sentiment of like, don't try something because, I feel like I've been seeing shows, not to age myself or anything, but I've been seeing shows for over 30 years.
Mhm.
And I think in the youth of life, you're more critical towards
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
performers, things and whatnot. But now that I'm older, I'm just like, I wasn't a fan of that, but damn, they worked so hard on that show.
yeah.
I just say I wasn't a fan, it wasn't for me. And when I had 9 lives with jobs, and before the pandemic, I was a concierge at hotels, and I would have to sell theater tickets and people would ask me about a particular musical that was very popular. And I said, I wasn't a fan of it. And they're like, does that, I was like, just because I did not like the
You
show,
won't love it. Yeah,
not mean that you will not like it.
yeah,
And one of my favorite musicals is Once. It's
yeah.
not for everybody. And people are like, oh, that show is so boring. It's like, guess what? That's
That's
fine.
great.
You didn't
Fine.
like it. I loved it. There's a musical out there that I'm not a fan of that people I saw it twice on Broadway. First time I saw it was with my family. I was like, maybe I'll like it better if I saw it with a friend. Won tickets at the flea market, saw it with a friend, still was not a fan of the show. And it has nothing to do with the show. It just wasn't for me. And people
You
got so defensive that I was
it's
not a fan of the show. And I was like,
it's a
what?
really ick time.
Yeah.
Because you also have to remember people are allowed their opinions.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't think is smart are people in our industry trashing something online. Uh, and I get shit for that. People saying, well, they're allowed to have opinions. Yeah, absolutely. But you don't have to post it. If you are in my industry, because I guarantee you, I'll see it. If you post it on Twitter and you're like, Lesli Margherita sucked so bad, blah, blah, blah. We're all so vain. I see it. We all search for ourselves. Anyone who says they don't is lying.
Or they'll
Like
send, or somebody
you,
will send it to you.
or someone will send it to me. I'll see it. And I guarantee you, if you're a performer and I have any kind of seniority in something and your name comes across, you're
Mhm.
not getting a job. You
Yeah.
will never work with me. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody is the same: directors,
Mhm.
producers. Somebody who works merch could be producing your show in 10 years
Yeah.
because I've seen it happen.
Yeah. We worked on something together.
No, literally, but if somebody is crap to you, those are the people, like we were saying, I will never forgive that person who told me I sounded like shit.
Yeah.
And they're not hurting for jobs.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget that because you remember the if that happens. If you're not in the business and you just want your opinions heard, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
And your opinions are valid. But trashing and you want a career in this business, good luck, is all I say. Good luck. Go ahead and trash to your friends. I don't care. Everybody does. There's the joke that you cover your microphone. I'm covering, have a a finger over my forehead, you cover your microphone within 5 blocks of the theater that you just saw something in,
Yeah.
if you need to. But you
Yeah.
don't need to go online and trash something if you're in this industry. You
Yeah.
just, it's bad form, and it's honestly, it will come back to bite you in the ass for sure.
Yeah. And that's also like the old adage of like, be nice to everybody because you don't know down the line, like you mentioned, like a merch person 10 years from now could be producing something or working on something, that, and again, they'll remember that. And
I just worked with someone, I don't want to out him, but I just worked with someone who produced a concert that I did that was merch at Matilda. And he now is a producer of many, many shows. And he was like, you were always so kind to me. And I
yeah,
was like, it goes a long way. And so I caution in the era of social media, the youngins that don't know how small this business is.
yeah,
And, and there are people like there've always been people like Michael Riedel, or now on TikTok, there's a bunch of people, that are like known as the baddies or whatever. That's fun. That's entertainment. They
yeah,
don't have the power to close a show, but
yeah,
you do. You listen to them and then jump on the bandwagon, blah, 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 blah. But you don't have to agree with these people. Just let
yeah,
it roll off your back. I do it in my cabaret show. I, for a long time, would read message board posts about me, like the really bad ones, because they're hysterical.
yeah,
And I tell people, I'm like, you have to put these blinders on and you have to treat that as entertainment, that somebody's opinion of you,
hmm,
it cannot, because it used to send me, I call myself, I always say that I'm in a review AA, because I haven't read a review of myself in over a decade, because I used to spiral, and I will not read a review. I'll let people be like, show got great reviews, show didn't. Okay, but I won't read anything.
yeah,
And you have to do the same thing with like people online or message boards. If you read them, you got to laugh and be like, okay,
yeah,
not everyone's going to like what you do.
yeah,
You have to compartmentalize and be like, whatever, that's one person,
yeah,
and but this business is so tiny.
yeah,
It's just be careful.
yeah. I like how you
It was
mentioned,
long-winded, but yeah.
I always said so I would have done something different if I were to ever do my own cabaret, where when I was on the dating apps, I'm taking a break from them because they're terrible, but I
Yeah.
would screenshot these messages that I was sent to me and I would send them to my friend. And I said, if I were to ever do a cabaret, I would sing the song I Hate Men from Kiss Me Kate, which I know you have done.
Uh-huh.
And I
Oh my
would
God.
sing the song with the slideshow of all of these messages that I was sent
I love
men.
you need to do that. It's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Oh, I tell people this and I show them this. I went on a Bumble like 2 hour video chat with some guy who I wasn't even that attracted to, but I'm like, whatever, it's a date.
Sure. Yeah.
Let me get experience.
Yeah.
And before I can tell him like I wasn't feeling it, he sent me a rejection message and it was 2 paragraphs long. And he could have stopped at the first paragraph because the second paragraph started with something on the lines of like to elaborate. Like, sir, you don't need to elaborate on the fact like you're not
No, man.
interested in me. Like, and
Just not going to work would have
and
been
he's
fine.
like, I need somebody who's more this, and this. I'm like, sir, we were on a video chat, and then you asked me if I had mental health issues because you were asking about your red flags. And I was like, I don't think somebody having mental health issues should be like connotated as a red flag. You should just be kinder in that way. Because I know that you dealt with that before. And no, he's like, can I ask you about that? I was like, sure, I don't care. Because my thing is like, you can ask me whatever you want. I don't have to answer the question if you ask it to me. But he's like, oh, do you smoke? Do you drink? No, I don't, no. Are you on medication for mental health? It's like,
Well, that's none of your business.
I'm
We're out
not,
there.
but
Yeah.
like, you shouldn't like say, oh, that's my red flag. You should just be like, oh, I've dealt with that in the past. So that would
And
prefer not to deal with that. But like saying that's a red flag, I
yeah.
feel like it's such a negative connotation on somebody who's going
Well,
through.
that's when you're like, I'm sorry, you having a red flag about that is a red flag for me.
Yeah.
So,
Also,
okay.
the fact that he was like, yeah, I collected like rocks and minerals and stuff during the pandemic. I'm like, that's so cool. That's a hobby of
Yeah.
yours. He was embarrassed by it. It was like,
Yeah.
again, wasn't that attracted to him anyway. So, but the fact that this guy had the audacity to send me like a second paragraph to tell me what was wrong, like
Yeah.
like, this isn't gonna work. I'm like, and this is why I mean, I know why I'm single. I'm not gonna advertise it, but I was like, this is why you're single. And I literally just wrote back, didn't feel anything either, best of luck. And I was just gonna write to him before he wrote to me, like, hey, wasn't feeling it, like,
Yeah.
best of luck, whatever. I don't have to go into like a whole big thing. Like, I'm not that invested in you. This is my day. Be happy you're married. I can't tell you, but you know what the
I,
worst is? I know so many people who have met their significant other on Hinge.
yeah,
Have
yeah,
been, I went to a wedding a few weeks ago. They met on Hinge. I have a wedding in 2 weeks. They met on Hinge.
it worked. I have a ton of friends too that have met their partners on dating apps. I know. But then, like you said, like they're one of my friends that had when she joined, there's like a farmers one, like farmers only, and they matched or something, and she got back. He was like, no fat chicks. She's a dancer on Broadway, like gorgeous. I just remember laughing so hard. I'm like, I don't know how you do this.
It's so
But
bad.
then there are so many people,
I got
so many people
catfished.
that meet. Yeah.
Yeah, I got catfished on Hinge. This
Oh,
is like the bleh story. I got catfished on Hinge and I knew it was a catfish. Deleted the number, whatever. Cut to years later. This had to be like last year when the play Goodnight Oscar was on Broadway.
yeah.
I do the typical like theater fan, like, here's a photo of my playbill on Instagram and on Facebook. I got a Facebook friend request from this guy who was a catfish under a different name. I was like, how the fuck did this guy find me? I was so freaked out. I called my
Oh, that's
best
creepy.
friend on the phone and we never talk on the phone. So she like knew something was going on. And we had a mutual friend. So I immediately texted that person and took a screenshot. I'm like, how do you know this person? She goes, I don't. So obviously I stalked him to see if it was an actual catfish. 100% was a made up profile with like people commenting on the things that he posted, not real. Cut to like the profile is not even on Facebook anymore. But I was
Creepy.
so freaked
Creepy.
out. And I'm completely private on Facebook. Like if we're not friends, you can't see shit on my
That's
profile.
really creepy.
Yeah.
That's frightening that people can, well, I know everyone can find that stuff, but it's
Oh
frightening.
yeah, believe me. I've seen again with my Instagram discovery for you page, I see everything. Oh, you posted that you're in a hotel. Well, let me show you how I figured out the exact hotel and the type of room you're in
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
posted like the china
Uh-huh.
that you were eating off of. Yeah. Hey, guys, welcome to the Theater Podcast where we talk about dating apps and getting stalked on online. Anyway, so,
Anyway,
anyway,
yeah.
so I
Mhm.
mentioned London earlier. So you
Yeah.
also were in London. You made your West End debut. Sorry, I'm gonna like really freak you out right now. Where you won an Olivier.
Ooh,
Oh, you're so fancy.
so fancy.
Zorro as Inez. Is that the right? Did I say the name right?
Inez, Inez,
Inez. I'm sorry. I need to have an accent.
Inez, a gypsy. I
Ooh.
can't even say that anymore. Can't even. I don't know what. No, there's still gyp. The thing is that she was an actual like
Yeah,
Andalusian mountains.
when I went to Paris for my birthday years
Huh?
ago. Oh, I've already said my age on here. And if you like go on my actual, well, I have two Instagram accounts. I have my podcast and my personal one. So my personal one, which is private, like I post my age. So like
Sure,
whatever.
sure.
Anyway, but I went there for my birthday to Paris, London and Paris, and everyone's like, watch out for the gypsies. They're gonna try. I was like, my friend and I are New Yorkers.
Yeah,
We go to like be like, leave us the fuck alone.
yeah.
Just walk by them.
Seriously,
I'm like, no.
also incredible people. And like once they're so like people get so weird about. I'm like they're incredible people. Yeah, I was really lucky that Zorro was the musical was written by the Gypsy Kings.
Oh,
Bamboleo, like, and it was their hits, and then they wrote new stuff. And I learned an incredible amount of about their culture and being the gypsies there, Spanish and French and from Andalusia, like a mix of everything. And the language even is like not straight Spanish, not straight French. It's like a mix of stuff that we had to learn. And it was amazing. Yeah, I
you
had
started
done,
out doing the workshops, right?
that. I had done workshops. The director lived in Los Angeles, and he was a Brit. And I got an audition for a 1-act reading of this musical Zorro. And I was like, that is gonna suck so bad. It was like Zorro the Musical. I just pictured like Party City, the mask, and like so bad, right? Anyway, I audition and get it. And it was incredible because I got to kind of write this role as it went. We only did 1 act. And I was like, this whole team is British. They were like, we wanted to go to the West End. And I was like, yeah, sure, buddy. And for like almost 4 years, I kept workshopping it. And I was the only one that stayed with it. And I truly believe, because I had so much input, and I talk about this too, you want to make roles that people can't do other than yourself. Like Leslie Odom's talked about it. Like you want to make it so that nobody else can do this if you're creating something. And they just kept me. We workshopped it in LA and New York and San Francisco, and they kept saying it's going to London, going to London. And I never thought I would get to go, ever. In fact, I remember a friend of mine being like, well, if anybody goes, it's going to be her. And it was another very popular Broadway person who had done a workshop. And I was like feeling so shitty after he said that. And I remember being like, well, none of us are going to get to go. So don't be a dick. And then I
the same person who said that sounded like it hurt, or was
no,
it
no, but I remember who this other person was too. And then I was planning my wedding, and I was doing a production of Damn Yankees that Jason Alexander was directing. And I remember getting a phone call. I was getting married in April, and I got a phone call in like November saying, from the Zorro people, saying, we're touring. We're going to go on tour pre-West End, which is what the shows do over there. They're very rare that they just open on the West End. They do a whole thing first. And I was like, sure, buddy. Okay. Cut to December. I get called that Equity wouldn't exchange me because I was a nobody. And this was before everybody started going over there. This is very rare that Americans went to the West End. And within like the next 5 years, it started happening a lot, but this was very rare. So they were like, screw it. They got me work papers. And I was like, I'm getting married in April. Can I get out of the last 2 nights of shows? They were like, yeah. So I went over there, and I was the only American, and I toured for, it was like 6 months. We rehearsed and toured all over. It was incredible. I loved it. I flew back 3 days before my wedding. And the night before my wedding, I got a phone call saying we were going to the West End. And then cut to, they changed everything in the show for the better. And recast and some stuff and all that. And then I went back, and we opened on the West End, and I ended up winning the Olivier, which also was completely unexpected because Americans didn't win then. And also my category was men and women together. The supporting category, London was way far ahead of like the gender thing. Like Europe was always and has been. Like I love now that they're like genderless, thinking of genderless categories and whatever, like it should be. But my category was men and women, and every single person, not maliciously, had just said, Americans don't win, don't worry about it. So I was like, great. Hubs and I having a great old time. I wrote nothing down. I had like, before he goes, write a few names on a card. I was like, okay, whatever. Boozing it up, having a great time. And then when they announced me, and I talk about it all the time, the video of it, I looked like I was going on The Price is Right. Like they had just announced, and I was like, scream, like Kermit arms. It was the most shocking thing. It was crazy. And I will say, after I won that, and I had not been on Broadway yet, I had auditioned and gotten so close and hadn't booked it. I was like, what that award meant to me was finally, I'm going to get a Broadway show. Nope. Took 3 years. It was crazy. Like I felt like, oh my God, finally I'm going to get something. And it meant nothing over there. I mean, over here, it was totally different. I thought the show was going to come to Broadway. It had all these plans, and then that fell through. You just never know. Like, you could have this incredible experience and reach the pinnacle of that industry of winning that award. And then everything else just kind of fell apart. And I was like, am I never going to get a shot? This show's not coming over. Am I never going to get a Broadway show? And I was so close to so many still over the next like 2-3 years. But because the Matilda people had seen me in Zorro, specifically the choreographer, because when I got back, Matilda was just opening. And so many of my friends were like, there's a show that just opened. You need to play this role. And I kept track of it. And it was at the point where I was like, it's not going to be me, because I'm in LA. And again, I'm just not booking the Broadway shows. And my friend Eden Espinoza got an audition, and she was like, this is not me, this is you. And I was like, they're seeing people? Like, I didn't even know. I flew myself out at least 5 times over the course of 9 months. But they knew who I was because they had seen Zorro. And so it was the Brits who really like were responsible for me finally getting a show on Broadway. And Peter Darling, the choreographer, I danced a ton in Zorro, but it was like flamenco.
Yeah.
He was like, I really want a dancer for Broadway, and I'm changing up the choreography for Loud and blah, blah, blah. So he was really instrumental. And it just was so odd that like I had to go all the way to the West End to have the Brits give me my Broadway debut. Yeah. It was so backwards. And I'm glad it was that way. I tell everyone, I'm like, you just don't know the path. You think it's going to be one way, and it's just not. It's just not. So it was a crazy journey to New York. Great. And I had never lived there before and didn't really want to. Then I loved it. Yeah.
But you also, hold on. Again, the verklempt-ness.
Oh, the
verklempt-ness. You also had like another crazy thing going on whilst you were auditioning for Matilda. You had a knee injury.
Oh my gosh. So clearly I still dance a ton. I was doing,
you also
and
over stage too, by the way. I just want to like,
yeah.
Yes.
But I am a dancer. That's how I started. And so, you know, over the 98 years of my career, there's a lot of injuries and stuff. Cut to, I was doing Grease in Sacramento at the Sacramento Music Circus, which was dubbed on a message board as Ancient Grease, because I was Rizzo, Beth Malone was Marty. It was like all of us that were maybe just a little long in the tooth, but someone actually dubbed it Ancient Grace, which has been my favorite thing ever to have happened. I was doing the hand jive, and in Sacramento, you run up ramps and whatever. In rehearsal, I tore my ACL. Completely tore my ACL, which for a dancer is a nightmare. I was auditioning for Matilda at the time. I went to a doctor, found out I tore it, had to audition. I didn't have to dance for Matilda anymore, but I had to go to a couple auditions, and knew that it was a real possibility that I was going to get Matilda. So I made an appointment. I did a play after with like Steven Spinella and all these amazing people. Mike Nichols produced it. And so I didn't have to dance, but I was in a lot of pain. And so as soon as the play was over, I was like, I'm getting surgery, because I still have lots of time to dance in my career, regardless of what happened with Matilda. So I go to one of the top sports guys out here. He does the Lakers. And I was like, I'm a dancer. There is a real possibility that I will have to dance, and not only like move, this is dance in 3 months. Everyone else scoffed and said, no, these take a year. This man who's responsible for getting these athletes back was like, you can do it. So I got him. I had surgery, and no joke, I came out of surgery. I am in post-op, and I get a phone call from my manager that I booked it. Post-op, completely high on drugs.
Perfect.
And I remember my husband said I was delirious, because I was like, I'm going to be on Broadway, and I would also like some fried chicken. I'm like, so then for 3 months, And my husband's not a theater guy, like he gets it, but he's a sports guy. So I always talk about sports documentaries to actors and things. He was like, you are never once going to say you won't heal. We found a therapist that had the same kind of mindset. We watched a lot of sports documentaries about like quarterbacks that were back in the Super Bowl 3 months after their knee injury or whatever. I, for 8 hours a day, worked on that knee. And in 3 months, I was back. And fun fact, the reason that there is a Cuda slam in lab is because they had choreographed an assisted split where my partner was, his arms were under my shoulder, my armpits, and they would lower me down slower in a split. My knee was still healing. And the only person that knew I had that surgery besides my team was Philip Spaeth, who played Rodolfo. He was my partner. He knew that I would rehearse, and then at night I would have the ice machine on my knee, and that I was still healing. So the assisted split hurt my knee. And so I was like, hey, you know what would be cool here is a jump split, because there's no pressure on your knee. It's all on your like inner thighs. And and so that's how that became, because it was actually to like save my knee that was still healing. But I am like, after that, and people, I get a lot of youngins now that have injuries. I'm like, it's so much of it is mental, and getting the right people to work on you, getting the right people around you, and not, because it would have been very easy to go down and been like, I'm about to make my Broadway debut and I've torn my fucking ACL doing the hand job.
Yeah.
But turning that around, and yeah, I'm a big proponent of like, I read a lot about sports psychology and sports psychologists and what, like Olympians go through and their mental state. And it's exactly what people should be reading if they're auditioning or have, I'm a terrible auditioner, but you have to like get in a headspace. And for some reason, it just clicked with me, like the sports thing, like really like resonated with me. So I talk about that all the time for people that have injuries, vocal injuries. It's the same thing. If you think that you're never going to bounce back from something, and you're not gonna, it's crazy. I sound like some like, woo.
No, not at all. Listen, like that's what I love about the podcast, because everybody has like their own journey, guys,
Yeah. Yeah.
and their own point of view and their own like everything. And that's what I love hearing that from people. And because again, as a theater fan or a theater enthusiast, like theater nerd, I just love hearing people's stuff. So
Yeah.
okay. And I also, this same thing that I heard about with the knee, you also talked about your Broadway debut and how like your emotions with that. So because
Oh,
I mean, I don't I'm not I have a degree in acting, but like now I'm just like, I don't know if I'd be good at it, but I can only imagine like for me, like being so like heavily like seeing shows and Broadway and all that stuff, it being like such a big deal, and you like finally making your Broadway debut, like what was that like for you, like waiting for this moment?
I'm crying now.
I'll cry with you. Hold on, let me get the water.
I tell you, it just doesn't, it's been a decade now and it doesn't go away. It like, I remember driving on the 405 out here, the freeway, and listening to the audition track that they had sent me, and just like picturing myself doing it. And then it was the first preview, was what I consider the debut, because it's the first time that, was doing it. And I was behind the hospital screen. I made the entrance behind this hospital screen, and I almost didn't make it, because I remembered saying those words that I was saying on the Broadway stage, driving on that freeway, trying to like picture myself there. And I was there, and it was like my mind was blown, and I was just like, my tears, like I almost burst out crying, because it was like, it's those things that you dream about, and not everybody's debut is good. Not everybody's experience is good, and that is heartbreaking in itself. And I know how lucky I was to do it in that show, in that role, with those people, in that theater at the Schubert, and just like, it was a lot. That whole experience was so incredible for me. Even like getting to do the vlogs, the backstage vlog, everything about it was so incredible. But that first night was, and I have a video. I took a video of me in my dressing room, like they say places, and I'm like, it's happening. It's actually happening. And the thing that you realize is like, it's no different than a regional theater. It's no different. It's the exact same thing that you would do in your high school show, you're going to do. It's just that the goal, it was reaching the goal mainly for me. It wasn't that like I'm on Broadway now, I'm so much better. It's not that at all. Because I love regional theater. I do it all the time. It was the goal that I had set for myself on that freeway going, I'm doing this role. I'm getting it. This is why I waited, because I wanted it to be this. So it was more that than anything, but it was just, there's also a picture where that first preview, Matthew Warchus and I think maybe Tim mentioned, came out and did a speech afterwards, like to the preview audience. And there's a picture where all the principals are in the front and they're like listening to them. I'm like, huge grin on my face, like so happy to be there. And they were too, but they were like a little more composed because they had been through it. But it was just, all of it was incredible. And I remember that exact moment of right before walking on stage and being like, this is happening. This is happening. And I hope that everyone gets some kind of experience like that, no matter what the goal is, if it's just playing a role or whatever. It's I was very present, and I remember kind of telling myself just to remember it and be present. And yeah, it was everything.
Yeah. Did you have that same feeling or similar to it to get the chance to perform at the Tony Awards
Oh my God.
out on a scooter at the end?
Yeah, I was a mess because the show had gotten so many nominations. They were so great about making sure that every single person was included in the Thanksgiving parade, in the Tony Awards. And that meant so much to me. That team is so incredible. And that doesn't happen all the time. It rarely happens. So even just to scoot on the Tony Awards, I was thrilled. And then, Gabe, who was my husband, won, and I was a wreck because it felt like I won. Yeah. It truly felt like I was a wreck. It felt like I won the Tony, and I was so happy, and obviously like wished that those awards had gone a different way. But I was so proud to represent the show and to be at Radio City and on the Tonys, which I had grown up watching. And it just is it was a huge thing. I loved that day.
Yeah. I actually graduated at Radio City Music Hall. So I remember walking across the stage and just like taking
amazing. Yeah.
Like now I'm crying. Like taking a moment just to like look out into the audience, because I said to myself, like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna be up on this stage again for like, I mean, you could do a Radio City Music Hall tour and go on the stage, but like to have the room, and I've seen concerts and I'm seeing this band that I love called Keen.
Oh yeah.
20th anniversary of their first album.
Oh my God.
Like, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I was supposed to see them and then the pandemic happened. Anyway, so they're playing at Radio City. But so I've seen concerts and everything there, but just to like stand on the stage, like center stage, look out into a completely like sold out house of people, like just to have that moment, because not many people get to have that.
No. And especially, it's not like they don't do it there that much anymore. It just was I had such a great time. Even like you're exhausted because you're rehearsing and then you're doing shows and getting on the bus. We rehearsed early in the morning, then getting on the bus. I loved all of it. Because and the same thing with the Thanksgiving parade, because over the moon that I got to be a tiny part of that as well.
And all the Matilda's got a Tony for like a special Tony.
And I got to go to there. Oh, it was so cute. Yeah. And I'm still I still am in touch with those girls. In fact, all the kids on Instagram. And now they're, in college, and I'm just really proud of all those kids. And I am not a kid fan. I don't want them. I don't like them. Those kids, every single one of them, I loved. They were like, I felt, and maybe because I don't like kids and I don't speak to them as kids, so maybe that was why they liked me.
Well, also like Mrs. Wormwood, that kind of like fit with the character.
Yes.
So I mean,
I loved these kids.
Maybe you're like a different version of Mrs. Wormwood.
A little bit. Yeah, I'm not a kid fan, but I love the professional kids.
It's so funny you
Like
mentioned that, and we're like, we're Disney fans. How do you deal with them in Disney then? Are you just like, ugh?
my husband and I literally are like, why did they who let children in this place? How dare they?
I
We were
just,
like,
I
we can't take
yeah,
it.
sorry. No, I
No,
was
no,
talking.
like, I remember us being in line for Pirates of the Caribbean, and there was, they've got like the chain in the queue, like these thick chains.
Yeah.
And there was a kid just like licking the chain. I remember my husband and I being like, oh, cats, this is disgusting. Get this child out. Just pick it up, get it away. Like it was just, we're like that. It just, I don't know, it was never ever for me. But yeah, Disneyland, we're like, oh
I will say, I always say like I don't like kids unless I'm related to them.
God.
And I have a niece, and she's just like I love her to pieces. But I
Like
do
my
want,
nieces now, they're adults now,
well,
but when
she's
they're
5. But I will say that I do want kids, but I say that because I was a camp counselor. And I was kind of like the go-to, hey, let's abuse a counselor.
Mhm.
And that was me, like slapping my butt, like the one who had to take care of the temper
Right,
tantrum kids. And I think that really turned me off to like,
totally. Yeah.
and then I worked at a dance studio. So I'm like, oh,
Oh,
this isn't that bad. And then they had a summer program that they didn't tell me that I was going to end up being like a camp counselor for. And then I was
oh,
like, no, this
you
is
know,
not. I mean, again, I do enjoy kids. I want
but
children,
oh,
but I don't think I can watch other people's children. Like, I can't be a babysitter. Like, I just can't do it. And I've been told so many times, like, to make extra money, become a babysitter. I was like, no, I don't want to watch other people's children. Like, I'll watch my niece if I'm ever asked to, but I'm not going to watch like a stranger's child because being a camp counselor has ruined my liking for other
correct.
people's children.
No, no. Mm-mm, mm-mm. But I like working with kids because they're smart.
Yeah. Yeah. The Matilda kids are great, but the other ones seeing the shows,
The other
not,
one, yeah.
yeah.
No, and I know if I can't have children because I would be a massive stage mother, and if my child wasn't talented, it would not end well.
So playing Mama Rose is nowhere in your future, or you're just
Oh
gonna
yeah,
like,
no, I definitely. I mean, I would be Mama Rose. So yeah, oh, I definitely want to do Mama Rose, and
yeah,
that's a huge dream role of mine someday.
yeah,
No, because I do understand
yeah,
that, and she's not nice to her kids.
yeah. It's so funny too, because I said like I can't see the act, but I feel like there are certain roles that I can just like I get it. I've always said to myself, like, if I were to play like a character of the opposite gender, what would it be? And I've always said Freddie Benson in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels
Ah,
because
yeah,
like that's just something I can do. And then I would play Claude in Hair because I
mm,
just understand him going to Vietnam. Like I get it, like why that happened.
yeah.
Yeah, what was that face? You don't like Hair?
I don't. No,
I,
I'm not a fan of hippies, and I wasn't alive around then, so I don't. Whenever I see hair, I feel like it's a bunch of like posers.
I wasn't around then either. So
I know. I can't. I don't enjoy it. No, no. I never want to do the show. Don't. I saw it on Broadway and saw so many things close to me, just swinging and hanging, and I'm okay. Not.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
mm,
You,
Yeah.
I'm not doing hair anytime soon.
Yeah. It's not for me.
So let's talk about Dames at Sea.
Yes.
So you're in Matilda, and then you're like, I'm just gonna go across the street and do another
Yeah.
musical. Excuse me, guys.
It was absolutely nuts. I um was such a Randy Skinner fan, obviously being a dancer, and my style of tap that I grew up doing was very much like a Hoofer style, which is what Randy is
Yeah.
the best
Question.
at.
Do you think, are you good at teaching people choreography? Because I,
Terrible.
because I cannot do a time step. I worked at
Oh
a
no,
dance studio. I had like 5-year-olds trying to teach me. I've had people on the podcast say to me, oh, I can teach you a time step. I'm
no.
like, okay, we'll see. So, okay, I'm
No,
curious to know.
I'm a terrible teacher. I think because starting from when I was a kid, it came so easily to me that I didn't, and now that I'm older, it takes a little longer, but when I was a kid, like steps and things came so easy to me that I didn't need somebody to break things down. And so I can't break it down for somebody. I'm like, I can only
I
do it.
I definitely get it.
Yeah. But yeah, that came out of nowhere. My contract was going to be up for Matilda, and I kind of knew they would like, what's different in on the West End is you get a year and then they do not have the same person do a role. Zorro was different. I stayed. Some shows too, but it's kind of a thing where they like to change up people. And I had been in Matilda for 2.5 years by this point.
Mhm.
And I was like, I should probably go home to LA or like do something else, but I hadn't made a decision. Then I got a call about Dames at Sea, and I was like, I had done Dames at Sea in college, but I played Ruby. And they were like, Mona Kent. I was like, that's the old part. And then they were like, no, that's just what you think of it because you were in college when you did it. They're like, Mona's in her 40s. I was like, oh, okay. It's not Dorothy Brock, like it was.
Well, I mean, it was old because you were only 25 when you
Totally.
were in the show.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yes. But
I mean, I'm older than you are right now, so it's fine. You
oh,
don't
and
need to be
then,
the business. It's only been 10.
of course.
Yeah.
And it just came, it was so quick how it happened. And it was like over a few days that like I had gone in, and then I met with Randy and they were like, you're in it. And I was like, what? And I loved that show so much. And during previews, I have never seen a show get a reaction like Dames at Sea was. People were standing mid-show after numbers. This is the first time I've ever gotten a standing ovation after a number. It was, people were going crazy. And I was like, this is great. We're golden. It's a teeny show, 6 people, tiny theater. We're going to run forever. Then the reviews came out, and it was the year that Hamilton came out. So they decided that there was no room for both. You had to be progressive and doing things that are new. And there was no room for this tiny old fashioned spoof. And then nobody came. Nobody came. And it was so heartbreaking because everyone that did come was like, this was the funniest thing. All 6 of you working your asses off. We loved doing it so much.
Mhm.
And it was heartbreaking that it lasted 3.5 months or 4 months, whatever. It was heartbreaking. And people to this day, we didn't get to do a recording. Like people to this day are like, I loved that show so much. I'm like, yeah, it was like bad timing of the things that were coming out that year. And it was Hamilton year. And it just, like, I remember reaching out to Lin-Manuel and being like, we're struggling. Can we do a Ham for Ham? And he was so kind. And he was like, you guys got to support these other shows as well. And we did the Ham for Ham. And it was just like, we couldn't get an audience because everyone thought it was just this old timey, and it is, but it was spoofing that.
Yeah.
And then last summer,
Yeah.
2
You
summers,
did original production of it,
yeah,
right?
Randy was doing, Randy wanted to revisit it and pare it down so that they had a production that could go to more regional theaters with different orchestrations and stuff. And he asked me, and I love Bucks County. I'd performed there before. He asked me if I would do this version. And I loved revisiting it, but even doing that, you're like, why didn't this work? Because it brought people so much joy, and those audiences just love it. And it's so funny and so pure. And the way that Randy had directed it, it was so obviously spoofing 6 people on a boat with like, gee whiz, it was such a spoof that's what it didn't, like 42nd Street is not a spoof.
Yeah.
Spoofing even that, and it was such a bummer that people didn't get it. And especially like the reviewers and stuff. And there is room for everything in a season. And that's what makes a season so cool, is you can see both of these things, or just bad timing. And it was such a bummer.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to close Matilda. Like they called me to do the last 3 months. And I was like, meant so much to me that they asked, and I loved that I got to close it. It was like the perfect bookend. But yeah, Dames of Sea was such a bummer because it was so good, so fun.
Do you think it would have worked better at an off-Broadway house?
Yeah, yeah. I think the Broadway model right now is not sustainable for anyone. I think what things cost on Broadway, what tickets cost, what it costs to run a show, uh, it's unsustainable. And why so many shows are failing. And we've got a million shows opening this spring, and I don't know. Um, and not to say off Broadway is expensive as well. It is expensive as well, depending on where you are and the amount of union people that you have in the crew, and it's expensive. So something has to give. I don't know what that is, but I know that I can't afford an $800 ticket to go see a friend of mine in a show. You
Yeah.
know, it's weird because then like something like Merrily that charges that much is sold out.
Yeah.
But then those people have blown their wad and can't see anything else.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it too. And
Well, it's so interesting that let's talk about it. Let's talk about theater and pricing because I always love talking about this with people.
yeah,
And I know that even during the pandemic, I don't know if we talked about this when we were doing the understudy, but it was probably maybe like a couple of months later when things were slowly like talked about coming back. And I remember talking to people about what theater pricing was going to look like once the theaters reopened, and it didn't really change.
oh, if anything, it went up.
Yeah, and I've been a member of TDF for many years, and
Yeah.
even TDF pricing has gone up. Rush pricing has gone up, lottery has gone up. And what's so funny to me was yesterday I was with one of my best friends who ushers sometimes with Drew Jamson, and we were talking about cabaret
Oh,
and
yeah.
how cabaret is doing this. And I just would, disclaimer, my opinion, just my
Yeah.
opinion,
Yes. Yeah.
my opinion, also based on years of experience seeing shows, but again, my opinion. Um, and how they announced this like pre-show cast,
Yeah. The tables. Yeah.
yeah, the tables and everything. And I said to her, I feel like those types of people who are going to spend the money, like $700, $800 for that experience to go see cabaret, to sit at a table, are not your typical theater goers.
Absolutely.
They're
They're not theater
like,
people.
they're not theater people. They're going to go to have the experience to see Eddie Redmayne on a Broadway stage.
Or their company bought them so that they wine and dine somebody. That's who's buying these incredibly expensive tickets. Yeah, it's not your theater fan.
Yeah. My friend
It's
and I, her and her husband bought a ticket for a certain day. And I'm like, oh, when are you going? And then I ended up like getting a ticket next to them for like 60, 70, 80 something dollars. We're in like the last row of the mezzanine.
yeah,
And we're just like, we don't need to see cabaret again. I saw the last revival 3 times because I saw each Sally Bowles.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Wanted to see all of them to compare. No, it just because
Yeah.
they're each different. So I want to see them.
I did that. I saw every Dolly and Hello Dolly because
Yeah.
and just bought a ticket every time because I was like, well, it's just what I wanted to do. But I
Yeah.
found cheaper tickets.
Yeah. I will say I did not see Bette Midler in it. I saw Burned at Peters.
Yeah,
And I made sure to buy a full price ticket for when Hugh Jackman was in Music Man because I'm like, I can't do the same thing that I did where I'm like, I'm just gonna wait to get a ticket like I did with Hello Dolly. So
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, there are things that, and one of my best friends, it drives her crazy because she loves to do Rush or whatever, and as do I, but
Mhm.
I don't want to be in the front row
Yeah.
and I don't want to be in the back. If it's a dance show and I'm not in the mezzanine where I want to sit to see everything, I won't enjoy it. So if it's something that I really want to see, I will shell out the money,
Yeah.
but it's got to be something that I really, really want to pick my seat because
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. But even off Broadway tickets are so much. I remember doing off Broadway
Yeah.
and being like, I'm sorry, it's really expensive everywhere though. Regional theater is expensive, and I just don't know. I think they're trying to make up for pandemic, and I just don't know how it's going to work. I don't know,
Also,
and it's
cost of living is so expensive now,
oh,
and jobs don't pay enough for cost of living. I just like
yeah,
it's
it's.
the whole thing is crazy.
I mean,
But yeah,
I got a uh I was a couple weeks ago was in the city doing a workshop, and um Sierra Boggess is a friend of mine, and I really wanted to see Harmony. So
Yeah.
I got a TKTS, and even that was like $100. I don't know, but good seat. Fine. I really wanted to see the show, and I was like, how did this not find an audience? Like, this is it was like the James at Sea thing. I was like, what is it? What is it that is, is it's, and I couldn't tell you. And I was talking to her about it after. She's like, I don't know if they marketed it wrong, but all these shows, and
I
again,
was,
there's
yeah, I could also, so I saw Once Upon a One More Time when I
oh, I
was,
wanted to see it. I had tickets and then they
oh my
couldn't.
God, it was, well, also like, I think the long-standing joke is like, if you're at the Marquee Theater, you know the show's not going to last because like nothing lasts
Cute.
there. But I feel like The Wiz will do well there.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. Yeah,
I
that's one of my
think
favorites.
also like Wayne Brady as The Wiz. Yes.
Wayne Brady, who I worked with at Universal Studios for years in Beetlejuice's Rockin' Graveyard Review.
Tell me he's nice. Is he lovely?
Fantastic. We're
Okay.
still friends.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I just they now have After Midnight on after the
Oh, yeah.
and he was on their Super Bowl episode. And I also love Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just like when they were doing something and he like came out and he like clicked the buzzer and was doing and he was
This
like
was,
singing and doing Usher and then he did like I was like, he's getting all the points for this.
yeah,
Like,
he's a good
no,
dude. And he's one of us. Like, that's what he started, clearly.
he did Hamilton. He's done so much. Anyway,
Yeah. I
where
can't wait to see it.
yeah, we were talking about the anyway. So Once Upon a One More Time, they were like, "Oh, it's the Britney Spears." And my friend and I like saw the show, and we were freaking out about how fucking like insanely like creative and amazing it
Oh my
was.
God. Yeah.
There was this one moment that happened where we were like losing our shit because it was like such a surprise twist that none of us saw coming.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to see an entire show of Justin Guarini as Prince Charming.
First of
Like,
all, you need to have you had him on here? Because he's one of the kindest people in the
no,
world.
I would love to have him on here.
I will put in a word.
Please
He's one
do.
of the kindest people in the world and one of
Yeah.
the most talented people in the world. And I really wanted to see it because he was one of the people that I knew that I wanted to see it. But those clips of him doing circus and singing and I was like, this is insane. This is incredible.
Yeah.
And it was such a bummer. I really wanted to see it. And I,
Also, him in Woman on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown,
I
who
never saw that. Ugh.
I saw it in previews. And I think it was like the first preview that I saw that they didn't have to stop the show.
Oh yeah.
I will say, like, so we were talking about, people judging people and all that stuff. I remember I went to Pace University, and the program is so much different now than it was when I was in college.
Right.
And I think like this was like years and years and years ago. And this is like well after I graduated. Some like it was posted that he was going to be like a visiting professor or something.
Oh,
And somebody who was a few years older than I was like judging the fact that Justin Guarini was going to be like, a visiting professor. I'm like, because he was on American Idol. And I was like,
yeah.
he's been in Wicked. He's originated Broadway roles.
Yeah.
He's the Dr. Pepper performer.
Yeah.
But you haven't done anything. You graduated, and like, what have you done professionally
It's
that
just
Justin
easier.
Guarini hasn't? Like, and that just made me so mad. Like the disrespect just because he's a name associated with American Idol.
But
Like
if Kelly Clarkson decided to do a musical, that's going to be okay, or had come to teach. Like, I don't get it. Yeah.
like and again, like he has the theater credit. He's originated roles. He's done Broadway. Like he knows what he's doing. So, and that just like pissed me off so much. And it's like show the respect for people just because they're a quote unquote named. And that's also like the other thing too, that you have like quote unquote movie stars coming to Broadway, but you forget like they started in theater.
Absolutely.
Like Bradley Cooper
Granted,
started in theater
yeah.
just because
Oh my God. Yeah.
in
And,
theater.
granted, there are some people that come to Broadway that aren't, but that's okay too, because it gets butts in the seats. And if it's not ruining something, whatever. But there are so many people that's what they started. That has been something that they worked really hard at.
Yeah.
Like Hugh Jackman is like the greatest example. Hugh
Yeah.
Jackman, I mean, a lot of people knew him from that Oklahoma that they aired on PBS. And you're like, who is that? He's
Yeah.
amazing. And then he became this movie star.
Yeah.
And people were like, no, 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 no. This was first. Theater
Yeah.
was first. So,
Yeah.
he's like, that's the greatest example. And now it's accepted. But I'm sure in the beginning, people were like, what?
Yeah.
Wolverine? Yeah.
Yeah. I was so lucky to get to see him in that
I
Chaz
never saw
Butterworth
it.
show. Oh fuck, what was
Yeah.
it called? The River?
Ah,
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
I had a friend who used to work at Circle in the Square, so I always made a deal with him. Like, if you get me a ticket to see a show there, I'll like get us tickets to see something. So he got me a ticket to see it, and then a friend of mine wanted to see the show, so I'm like, let's go. And I got rush tickets, and then she got sick halfway through the show, so we had to like sneak out of the front row. And then the house manager kind of knew me from merch, so she let us sneak back in towards the end of the show.
Yeah, again, the front row though, I can't, it's just,
I think it depends on the theater that you mentioned, but
yeah.
like sitting front row, like
Yeah,
I
if there's an orchestra between me,
yeah.
that's usually okay. But shows that don't have a pit, if you're right there, I'm missing everything. I don't
There are
know.
some
Like,
shows that do have hits. Like I was very people, some people are jealous of me for two things. One, I saw Julie Andrews on Broadway in Victor Victoria. And then
mm,
the other one is I actually got to see Jeremy Jordan as Tony in West Side Story. And
hmm,
that was before he was like Jeremy Jordan. And I say that because my cousin and I went to see the show, and I think we like won the lottery or something, but we were in the front row, so we miss Tony dying because we're looking up and he's lying on the
ah,
stage. So we didn't get to see
oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh
Tony's death.
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, but I will say rear mezzanine depends on the theater. I
Yeah, true.
never again sit rear mezzanine of Studio 54.
Oh no, that one is rough.
It's rough.
That's a rough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even when I sold theater tickets to people, I would straight up tell them, like, I have not sat rear mezzanine of this theater, but I've had people who have, and they said it's fine. But then I would tell them, I will never sell you tickets rear mez at Studio 54.
There's a lot, like St. James is super high too, like the balcony
I've
of
sat on
anything.
the balcony before and it was fine. I saw the opening night of Frozen there in the balcony, but I got a free ticket, so it was fine. And then I went to the party afterwards and it was great.
I saw that invited dress and wept, like just wept. Casey Levy. I was like,
Yeah. And now she's doing next to normal on the West End with
ah,
our
yeah.
favorite Jamie Parker.
I thought, yeah, that's gonna be incredible.
Tell me where your love for him started because when I mentioned him the first time, you're like, oh my,
Um, oh, what was the first thing I saw him in? What would have been the first thing I saw? And why do I think it was like a TV?
it could have been. He's done a lot of film and TV.
Yeah, I feel like it was like a British thing because I watched tons of that. I don't remember. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those people that has just always been in those things.
He's always, when I
Oh,
was in London, I was lucky enough to get him this, like, I interviewed him, and then like 2 weeks later or a few weeks later, they announced him doing The Curious Case of Benjamin Button in London. And I was very lucky enough to actually get to see him do that while I was there.
wait, the dog in the nighttime?
No, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, the F. Scott
Yes, they
Fitzgerald.
did it. I
Like,
was like, wow.
yeah, I can totally see a play in New York, but it would have to be off Broadway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Curious Case is another show.
Yes.
Great.
Oh, and yeah, incredible. I saw it twice because Taylor Trench, I had to go see, who's
Yeah.
one of my favorite people. He was obviously in,
And now he's doing a show with Cynthia Nixon off Broadway.
hopefully gonna get to see it. I hope so.
Me too. That I know they do rush for. Well, it's funny that you mentioned like tickets you have to get. So for me, I have to see Doubt. That's like
Mm.
on my
Mhm.
list. And it's funny you mentioned about like having names, and I immediately thought of that because Isabel Keating is the understudy
Oh
for
God, she would be in.
Aloysius. So a lot of people are like, why didn't they just put her in there instead of getting a name like Amy Ryan?
Yeah.
But I loved Out. I saw it 4 times when it was on Broadway, but I saw the replacement cast. And
And I
so
love Scott Ellis, to me doesn't miss. So yeah.
And so for me, I was like, I just need to buy a ticket. So I got like a discount code and I'm sitting like mid to rear mezzanine of that theater, but it's not bad there. And then cut to the next day, I found out they do fucking rush tickets. I was like, are you kidding me? I could have myself like $40. Yeah. So let's talk quickly about Emojiland. And I bring this up because I love how you sometimes post how people like there was one time somebody thought you were Lady Gaga.
Huh?
And I just
And
want to talk about Emojiland.
first of all, Stephanie Germanotta, I love Lady Gaga so much.
Mhm.
So this was like high praise.
Yeah.
Yeah, when that show was happening, Chromatica was coming out,
Mhm.
and Stupid Love was going to be the first single, and it hadn't come out yet. Only like some images from her video, and she had a bright pink ponytail. I look like Gaga anyway. I get it all the time, especially when I'm blonde. In Emojiland, I had a bright pink ponytail. So Emojiland had released some like B-roll from the show, and people on Twitter and Reddit thought that that were visuals from Stupid Love. And I have them all screenshotted because it made me cry laughing. Like they were like, Stupid Love, she's coming for the straights, she's coming, like all this, like it was like everywhere. And I laughed so hard because it was just Princess from Emojiland.
On a pole.
I've peaked.
Yeah.
Peaked.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that
it was.
show, and I stopped because of the pandemic, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
loved that show. Oh my God, I've never been in such a stacked cast in my life. The
Yeah.
people in that show were, I mean, you have Anne Harada playing the pile of poo. Like it was insane. It was so fun. And that show was so good. And that was another one where people were like, Emoji Land. I was like, it was a political commentary, is what people didn't get. Like, I was Trump. Like, I built a firewall to keep the lesser emojis out. Like, it was an entire commentary,
Yeah.
like, disguised in this, fun, whatever.
When I saw Wicked in 2016, when like the whole Hillary Trump
Yeah.
thing was happening, I went with one of my best friends and at intermission, she was, I always say screaming, but she was just like, this is the presidential election. The wizard is Trump, Alpha is Hillary, and we're all goats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. And Emojiland was so smart. The music is so good.
Yeah.
The staging, everything, the costumes was just like people loved it. And I defend it to this day. I had so much fun. And Josh Lehman played Prince next to me. And I don't think I break on stage a lot. I'm really bad. I don't think I've cry laughed so hard on stage. Like he would stop the show because I couldn't speak anymore. Like it was so fun. And yeah, I had such a blast. And the thing about that show is what happens after Princess builds the firewall is there is a virus that gets leaked. And we were singing virus literally as Corona was on the rise. I had been in London the week before everything shut down because I was doing a concert there, and I remember being like, "Oh God, this is really a thing. This is happening." And the night before shutdown, the last show that really anybody did,
Mhm.
um, I remember we were all singing virus and everyone just laughing because there was nothing else to do. It was this insane, like meta experience, like, doing this song. And then the next day, everything I remember getting all we were in the dressing room nobody was coming to the show. It was like half hour and they were kind of keeping people out because we weren't sure. Then 6 went down, everybody started going down. And then we were like, okay. But even then, I mean, everybody says this. It was like, well, a couple weeks, we'll be back. We all left our stuff in the theater,
Yeah.
and that was it. And then it just, like so many things did, we just never came back. But I loved that show. I loved the recordings, great. And I just love that show.
Yeah. And here we are, and then we met.
And then we met during the pandemic.
Yes. So aside from doing our reading of the understudy, what did you do during the pandemic? And you did other readings and things like that, as we
Yeah.
talked about how you like rhinestones your forehead.
Yep.
Um, what else did you do during the pandemic to keep sane or busy or creative?
I um I was incredibly lucky in that very early in the pandemic, I was right before shutdown, I was shooting a Netflix show and a film. And as soon as they could go back,
Mhm.
I flew back. It was frightening because I was in LA. I had given up my place because I was like, I'm just going out. At that point, I was like, nothing's happening. So I came back to LA and I flew back to finish shooting those two things. And I remember being in Times Square and nobody else is there. And I had a picture, it's just me, and it was so freaky. I was very lucky to work. Pasadena Playhouse did a virtual concert. So work wise, I was incredibly lucky to have some stuff to be creative. Um, and the other stuff I just kept saying by I couldn't go to the ice rink, so I had rollerblades. I would like go outside as much as I could. And in LA, it was a little easier. New York was hard. New York was when I was there for the first couple months, and then my husband was like, let's get you home. LA was a little easier because it was more open air.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I did a lot, so many readings, so many online things, um, and really just kind of enjoyed. It was an odd thing because my husband and I were apart for so long.
Yeah.
Well, I was at work and he was here, so it was really kind of nice to be together with
Yeah.
our dog. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, it I and I don't want to say enjoyed it, but I didn't have a horrible experience like so many because I really nice too because I really like tried to keep busy and was lucky enough to keep busy. I mean, there were days where I was like, I don't know what's coming back. I
Yeah.
really, because even the things that I went to film were like the makeup artist is in a hazmat suit. I was like, how are we going to go forward with
Yeah.
any, and especially theater?
Yeah.
Um, so that was a bummer, and I couldn't go there a lot because then I felt like I would never work again, as I'm sure everybody did. But yeah, I was lucky that I kept busy.
Yeah.
At least whether that was writing or I wrote a script, I wrote like it was just keeping busy myself.
Yeah.
But
Do you want,
I
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was saying I was actually okay. It was okay.
You said you wrote a script. Is there anything you want to do with it? Do you see yourself as a writer? Have you
Yeah,
written?
I love to write. My dream is to write YA books. Uh,
I'm gonna ask, like, we were literally had like a 20-minute conversation about
yeah,
books.
I yeah, my dream is to like create YA like content, like TV shows and whatever. Yeah, I would love to write. I write just for myself. I wrote a script and like had a great reaction to it. It's just really hard. I'm not a writer by trade, but I like to do it. A lot of it's just for me. I write a lot of I wrote a kid's book. I like, yeah, I do it for fun, but I love it. And if I could be a writer full time, if that had been, I would be happy. I just did a workshop, and the script was written by Jodi Picoult, who's like, a world renowned writer and has sold just millions and millions of books. And I just remember I was so like, just wanted to pick her brain to be like, how cool is your life? But she thinks what we do is cool. She's like, she loves musicals and everything. It's just like, I don't know. I mean, I love what I do, but I would have been happy had I just been a writer as well. But I love it. Yeah. It's super cool, super fun.
Well, I'm saying, like, you're in the business, you know a lot of people. So if you ever wanted
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
reading of like a script just for shits and giggles, like I'm sure
Oh my
you could
God. Yeah.
a bunch of
Yeah.
people.
I wrote like TV stuff. I don't think I could write a play. I don't know. They're hard. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I like creating stuff, and even if it's just for me, you
Yeah.
get to kind of like live in your little world. And but yeah, I love YA stuff, and um just think there's like opportunity to write some cool uh stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. And there's so much content out there now too. And there's so many ways that you can just like self-publish yourself. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I, there's an app on my phone because, as we talked about books and all that. I read like an entire novel like on an app like
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah, like Wattpad is like huge for stuff. Yeah. It's
Yeah, like
great. Not
yeah, speaking of like, we were talking about like the boy band Harry Styles S type guy. Like the After book series is based
oh yeah.
on One Direction fan
Because
fiction that
yeah.
started on what's that?
Well, 50 Shades of Grey was Twilight fan
Yeah.
fiction. It's all these things that these women were bored and wrote fan fiction on Wattpad,
Yeah.
and then it just blew up. Like, and whether you like their writing or whatever, it's made gazillions of dollars and brought people lots of joy. So I'm all for it. I think it's incredible. But even like the movie we were talking about with Anne Hathaway, that was also on Wattpad. That was like
Really?
another.
Well, I will say, like, in defense of the writer, because people are like, it's Harry Styles fan fiction. It's not. It's not based on Harry Styles. She has come out and said he was one of the inspirations, but not the only
Not
one.
like After was. After was definitely based on.
After was one. Did you read the After book
Oh
series?
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would like, I can't remember which numbered book it was, but literally the entire book was just them fighting. And I like had to stop reading it because I was getting
Yeah, they're
so,
not great, but that I read them so quick. Like I'm
yeah,
I'm blessed to be a very quick reader. So when it's
yeah,
not my favorite, as we said, prose before, I can at least like get through it quickly. But I like to read everything just so I'm up on things.
yeah,
Um, even if it's not for me. Like if there's a new like series that's going to be the next whatever Hunger Games or whatever, like I'll read it just so that I know. Um, yeah, I don't know. I like to
yeah,
like I actually think I'd be a great development person because I often like I'm really good with trends and I end up reading a lot of this stuff years before it, like we were talking about like Akatar and like
yeah.
and all this stuff years before it kind of hits. And for some reason, I'm really good at picking those things. So I think I'd be a good development person to be like, oh, I think this is going to be big.
Have you ever read something and saw yourself in it and you're like, maybe I should develop
Yeah,
this too? Mm.
100%. I am actually for the first time trying to option a film to get it made into a musical for myself.
Nice.
I've
I,
tried a couple times before with other things, but this one I really it's an older film that isn't like a famous film that everyone would be like, oh, but yeah, but books too, there's stuff that if I had the means to like buy the rights to, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, I
Then
was,
if another company buys it, then and if I know somebody that's working on it, then I'll try and like get seen that way for it.
I'm not a writer. I fully admit that. I can't play music. I can't read music, but I was watching Mystic Pizza years ago and I was like, this is a good musical.
Yeah.
And now it's a musical, but I think it's like a jukebox musical.
Yeah, it's a jukebox musical. I'm bummed because it's out here at one of the regional theaters and I missed it because I was in New York. Um, I really wanted to see it. I had friends in it, but I heard it was great. I heard it was
Yeah.
super fun.
That's good. I feel like there would definitely be a moment between like Julia Roberts' character and her mother. And I'm like, there's a
Yeah,
song here for the mother to sing.
yeah,
Like that's what was in my head. But now it's okay. Just like I'll direct Neil Abute plays. That's fine. Shape of Things. I mention it every podcast. Anybody out there, I will do it. I have the cast in my head. I know who
amazing.
I want. It's a good cast. I'll direct the understudy again with that cast.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, Leslie Margherita as Roxanne. I do have a plant named Roxanne.
Oh,
I do, because it was funny. I got the plant around the same time we were doing the understudy, and I was throwing out the box, and then the Sting song, Roxanne, came
yeah,
in
yeah.
my head, and that's how the plant was named Roxanne. And then I was like, it's just funny that I'm also directing this virtual reading with a character named Roxanne. Look at that. So you also have an album coming that's out called Rule Your Kingdom. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit?
That is a live recording of my cabaret show that was called Rule Your Kingdom, that I did a couple years ago. Well, before pandemic, actually, it's been a little bit. And I had worked on versions of that show for so long, and it became Rule Your Kingdom. And so that is a live recording. But what's cool about it is the way that I do cabaret is not really like talk a little bit and then sing a song, talk a little bit, sing a song. tell these huge stories and monologues that sometimes weave in and out of the songs, and there's visuals and sometimes there's puppets and things.
Yeah.
So it was really important to me to include the stories. So it is like you're getting the whole kind of experience when you listen to the album. And I think the stories are maybe sometimes more important than the songs.
Yeah.
And I love it. It turned out so great. And yeah, I am in the midst of writing a new cabaret show, and they're really hard. It's so hard. You live with something for so long, and because I don't like to do the typical kind of I'm going to do a night of Sondheim or whatever. It's boring to me. I like to see them. I love people that do
Yeah.
that, but not a singer like that. I know my strength is as a storyteller.
Yeah.
I know that is what I do better than like I can act my way out of anything. So to me, those are important, but they just take longer to put together because I want to make sure that the stories are good and the message that I have is good. And the Ruler Kingdom message was so important to me because like on my social media, it's all Queen Leslie, and it has nothing to do with thinking I'm better. It's all about empowering yourself and saying, give yourself a title, whatever that is,
Yeah.
because you are the ruler of your life, no matter what is anybody's telling you, whatever. And I need to follow my own advice. There are times where I'm like, well, I'm telling people this and I don't believe it. So I needed the message as well. So it was all about that. And I think it was so important at the time. That's what I wanted to get out there. So yeah, I love it. And it's super fun. There's like extra tracks on the album that like we didn't do in the show, but I wanted to sing. So it's super fun. I love it.
I also love how it's called that's not proper English that just came out of my mouth. Rule Your Kingdom, because it does lead into what you were saying about, like name yourself, and in your TED Talk on your website, which is here's what I know. You talk about labeling yourself like Queen, Lord, Sir, whatever. Like my Siri calls me Lady Allison because of Downton Abbey. But I also call myself like Mama Tanny because like that. And I do like, because we're the main character of our own lives as well. And like sometimes I completely forget that all the time, but like I'm also like a queen to myself.
Yes. And that's what the message is about is people are going to label you and you're probably not going to like what they call you.
Yeah.
But you have the ability to be like, nope, moat up my little castle, my little kingdom. And it has nothing to do with thinking that you're better than anyone. It's all about just knowing who you are and staying with that. And if you want to call yourself the supreme ruler of whatever, then that's absolutely your choice. You can do whatever you want. Yeah.
The queen of my kingdom, which is my apartment. Also, like I totally just realized this because I looked at my bookshelf behind me and we were talking Disney, and this is like a total sidetrack, but I do have Disney prints. And we were talking about Disney before. So like the top one is Hercules, and it's beautiful Hercules print. And then I have one of Robin Hood and Hunchback.
Oh,
yeah.
Hunchback.
So I'll show you those later. But because I just like I was like, oh, it's there. Yes.
Hunchback, and it was
yes, you were Esmeralda.
Yeah, it was my favorite thing I've ever done in my life.
No, so I know that they did Hunchback, I believe, at Paper Mill, and from what I was told, I didn't see it, but they kind of incorporated like more of the book as well. So it wasn't like your typical Disney show.
It's really dark. Yeah.
Is
it's
that
very dark.
Yeah.
So when Paper Mill didn't transfer, I think Sacramento Music Circus was, I want to say, one of the first people to do it regionally. And because it hadn't worked, or it did work, I think it was beautiful at Paper Mill, but Disney didn't want to move forward with it. So when Glenn Casal, who was at the time the artistic director of Music Circus, and he was going to direct this, they let him take everything apart and do what he wanted. And because it's in the round at Music Circus, you have no set, so you have to really rely on certain things. He very early on when he was talking to me about doing it, I'm a little on the older side for Esmeralda, but he wanted more of an Aldonza, more of a woman who wasn't a girl, wasn't this like more of what she is in the Disney movie. I feel like in the musical, it would have been easy. I mean, it's just a dark story anyway. So I think it would have been hard to see a younger woman in that position. And I think having more of like an older Aldonza type made it not so ick with with Frollo, and like, it just like needed a little gravitas. I have no idea what they did at Paper Mill. I didn't see it. I love that class. I'm sure they were phenomenal. And then this version, he also wanted an actual like deaf actor. So we had a deaf actor, and then he had a voice. John McGinty, who's an incredible actor, was Quasi, and his voice was Jim Hogan, an incredible singer. And it brought a whole new level to it. Because John also speaks. It was just so beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever been a part of. And I'm so grateful for that experience. And it really worked. And I think Disney just doesn't do it because it is really dark. It's very sad. It's just, sad. And so I think they develop other stuff. But
well, I think the Disney version is not sad, but the actual book itself is
and the show is very sad.
So that's why my old roommate who like works in
Broadway. Did she die in the movie?
No, she doesn't.
She dies in the show.
She also dies in the book, and I think like Quasimodo is also found dead with her. I think he like mourns her or something. Something like that. I didn't read it. I just Wikipedia'd it.
Yeah, it was stunning. The music is gorgeous.
The
cast that I got to do it with was unbelievable. I'm really, really happy and so grateful to them that they let me do it. That was one of those things where you're like, I wouldn't get to do this normally, but it was just something that they wanted to try. And I had worked with Glenn, and he, I had done Aldonza for him. And so he like wanted that same kind of energy. So yeah, it was so amazing. Beautiful.
So there's also another thing on your Instagram / the TikTok, because again, I don't have TikTok and everything ends up on Instagram anyway, where it's this person with the makeup brush talking about podcast that you did. Talking about how it's not all about being on the Broadway. And I think it's very important that we talk about that, especially if there is a young performer listening that like, yes, Broadway is a dream for a lot of people, but just because you are not on Broadway or don't make it to Broadway and you're doing a bunch of regional stuff, film, television, what have you, does not make you any less or what have you as a performer. Do you want to?
It's a crazy thing. And I understand it because, I grew up, everybody grows up going Broadway's it. And like I said, that was a goal. And when I attained that goal, I was so happy. But that's when you realize, like we were saying earlier, it is no different than you performing in your community theater. It's the same thing. It just has more money. Just has a bigger budget. I think it's incredibly important to just keep working. I love regional theater. LA theater, and LA is not considered a theater town. That was my bread and butter forever. And I still do regional theater all the time because I play all the roles that are my dream roles that if I was waiting for Broadway, I would never play. And so what was weird, and I think in that podcast we were talking about, I remember coming off of Matilda and doing, I don't know, something like Guys and Dolls somewhere or something. And I remember people being like, why would you do that? You were just on Broadway. I'm like, why wouldn't I do that? It's not only on the business side of it, my insurance, a paycheck, which I'm not making anymore if I'm not on Broadway. Take that away, I'm playing a dream role of mine with people who want to be there. It's insane to me to think that if you've been on Broadway, you can never do these regional theaters. And for the the opposite way of people who are like, I just haven't made it yet. That does not mean you're not, that doesn't mean you're less than. I took so long to get to Broadway, so long. And I remember those doubts being like, am I not good enough? It has nothing to do with that. Broadway is a street. It has nothing to do with your talent. It is being in the right place at the right time. And your playing a role regionally is just as important as it is doing Broadway. And I hate when people put regional theater down or community theater down. That is, none of us would be anywhere if we hadn't done those shows and still continue to do those shows. The most fun I've had in forever, I just did a show at Pasadena Playhouse that was like, I had the best experiences doing these shows. So I'm proudly like waving that flag of literal Broadway is not the end all be all. The West End is not the end all be all. And oddly, like in London, I felt more of a, like over there, theater, TV, and film are all the same. There's no like barrier, as well as doing a show out of town or wherever. There's no differentiating. Where in the States, it's very much like, oh, they do movies, they do this, blah, blah, blah. And why it's a big deal when a movie star does a West End show, like, wasn't a thing. I always tell people, like, Ian McKellen was next to me in the theater in the West End, and he was doing something, you know, it was just like something that they do. And that's how I feel about regional theater. It's just what you do. You keep working. Just because you're not Broadway doesn't mean you stop working. And again, like, when we were doing this, when they were asking me that on that podcast, I had literally just done Adelaide and Audrey back to back in a row. And I was like, where else am I going to get to do those roles? I'm going to wait for a revival that I might not get. Like, it's crazy to me. And I have the best time. I just had the best time. It's always the best people. And everybody's there because they want to be.
I don't know.
Always it's on Broadway.
I don't know if you feel this way or not, but do you think that the tide of more like quote unquote like well-known performers doing regional has like shifted over the years? Because I feel like regional theater now is, as you were saying, like people look down upon it. Like I don't feel that people feel that way as much now as they would
since COVID. I think it took the pandemic and people just wanted to work and they realized how rare it is to work. No, and also I will tell you that most of the regional shows that I have done are better than some stuff I've seen on Broadway, hands down. There are productions that I've been in that have been better than the productions or a revival or whatever on Broadway. And it just, regional theater it's full of people and up and coming directors or, you know, it's just more creative because the financial structure isn't in place there. They've got a subscription. They can take chances. They can do new things with shows because they have a subscription base. So you can't do on Broadway because they can't afford to take a chance. And some of the best art and coolest versions of stuff like that Hunchback, like, is being done because they can. So I love it. I think like it's so important, and everything starts regionally too, you know, stuff, because they can try it out and they're not assholes in New York shutting it down before it gets a chance to maybe go to a couple regional houses and see what audiences think, away from critics, away from social media. It's great. It's fun. I love it. I will continue forever to do it. It's something I actively look for. I look at people's seasons and go, what do I want to do? Is there something that I want to do that I want to go out for? I'll never stop doing it. It's the best. Like, I went to Pittsburgh last summer and did Guys and Dolls, and my husband's family's from Pittsburgh. So his whole family was there and we got to spend time. You know, it's just like, it's the coolest thing because you get to
Great Comet. They did it like right after Guys and Dolls.
Right after. Didn't get to see it. Yeah, they did it right after. Yeah,
I know the person who played Pierre, and I was like, I'm not going. I love Great Comet, and I was just like, I'm not going to Pittsburgh. It's too far. And they're like,
it's far. Yeah,
that's understandable. But I have a friend who saw it, and he knows I love Great Comet, and he was like, it was incredible. But yeah,
I do feel like, because the casts that I'm part of, they're incredible. So I do feel like that tide has shifted, I would say, in the last 5 years for sure. For sure.
I feel that way too. And I do agree, like a lot of known people. And you're probably right because of COVID, because, if you want to be a working actor, like it doesn't matter where you are, when you're younger. And I also had this like in my head, like I want to be like, I want to have a Tony before I'm on the stage. And for me now, like if I were to pursue that, I would just want to be a working actor who works steadily, like making a living performing, because it's not easy to do that.
I'm not gonna lie, it is a daily battle of me going, it didn't happen, I haven't made it yet, and then going, you idiot, you have, look at what you've done. And that is perception. That is because people don't know my name walking down the street. Does that mean I haven't made it? Does because I don't have a Tony, does that mean, you know what I mean? So and I think all actors go through that. And it's been me now trying, really honestly, the last like 6 months, really trying to um be happy, just
Yeah.
enjoying just working, because I am so lucky that I get to do it. And I've always felt that way, but it's been like 6 months of actively being like shutting off that narrative in my head
Well, when
of
in doubt, just remember where you were and what you were doing last week before we started this recording,
right.
which we're not going to mention what it was. But when in doubt, just remember that moment
Yep.
happened.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I had literally the week before done a reading with Tony Danza, who I'd grown up with, like, and then yeah, I shot a TV show with somebody also famous.
Like, what is your life? It's just,
Yeah, it's really rad. And that's when I sit and think like,
Mhm.
okay, the normal benchmarks that the public, like
Yeah,
a normal person would be like, oh, you're an actor, what have you done? Which is the worst question you can ask
yeah.
anybody. And because I'm not famous, the normal layperson would be like, oh, well, whatever, you didn't make it. And there is that perception, like
Well,
going back
I
to
do agree with
having
that.
done Broadway.
Yeah, because I mean, again, as a theater person, as I also just have like a very large entertainment knowledge base. So I just know who people are in general, like I would say like 95% of the time. And, if I were to see a show, my mom will be like, oh, who was in it? I was like, nobody you would know. Oh, okay. Or I'll be
Right.
like, oh, well, this person was in it. I don't know who that is. Okay, then never mind.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And that is like, I think I know I'm not the only one that thinks that way and has to remember why we do what we do. And again, like part of me keeping my head above water has been doing regional theater and doing other gigs.
Yeah.
It just, for me,
Yeah.
because I want to play a role or I want to have that experience or go to that city or whatever. And that's been the biggest lesson, I think, was that Broadway was not the end all be all. Love it, great, but it was no different.
Yeah. And I will say, like, you were so lucky to get to originate a role on Broadway,
Oh,
brand new
yeah,
musical, which was like
yeah,
incredible. You got to perform at the Tonys, and that
yeah.
doesn't
All
happen.
of it was like, yeah,
Yeah. And then you got to go across the street and do another one.
yeah. I know, so lucky. Yeah. And I don't take that for granted ever,
Yeah.
ever.
So as we're like winding down, I do want to ask also, because you have a lot of film and TV credits as well. So how would you like for the ones listening out there for like self tapes? This is also like out of mind play. I feel like I know this already. Like how does one do like a self tape for like film, TV, musicals? Like how does that compare with one another?
It's
Or is it
really
all kind of
tough
the same?
because they're so different. No, they're so different. Like, film and TV, we've been self-taping for since before the pandemic. It's
Mhm.
only now that, I mean, it was only pandemic that it became like the norm.
Yeah.
Um, and for musicals, for somebody who lived not on the East Coast, self-taping myself for musicals was also a pretty normal
Yeah.
occurrence. Um, no, it's a different thing. Like I'm sitting right now, you can't see it, but I'm, I have a section of my husband's office that has nice setup, has different backgrounds, and has, everything that I need mainly for film and TV auditions. The really hard thing about musical auditions is you are sometimes squelching for the gods and you're so close to the camera that it's so hard. And I've been lucky enough to like judge a lot of these competitions for youngins coming up, and part of it is it's all on tape. So part of it has been me learning too from them, like what works and what doesn't, and it's a skill. Um, it's a completely different, when I have a musical audition, I like to go outside of my house and go to a studio that is bigger, and I will make it feel more like it would in a regular audition at Pearl or Ripley Greer, or it's a little more studio like and not so close. But there's times where I can and I have to, and my poor neighbors hear me, screaming and squelching. And it's tough because there's no room for error. You can't cut like you would in a normal audition, but you're so close to the camera that sometimes you're like, oof, it doesn't sound the same. It's hard. I love self-taping for film and TV, but I much prefer for everything to be in a room because I like getting direction. Like we were talking about Matilda, like I like somebody telling me not it at all or keep going in that direction. And self-tapes is hard because you send it out, and if it's not what they're looking for, very rarely will they come back and say, can you do it again and do it this way? It's very rare because they just don't have the time. And there are so many tapes. So it's not going to change anytime soon. Some musicals are back to in person. I've had one like at the height of COVID, which was odd because everyone was in a mask except for me, and I could not see anyone's reaction and just assumed everyone hated me. Can't see anything. Yeah, it's been a weird time, but like the self-tape thing is an art, especially for the film and TV, and I've just been doing it so long. You just figure out, like, I never move my lights or anything. I know exactly where they go, but the musical ones, really hard. I wish I had better answers for film. It's just really hard.
Well, good. Do you have any top going theater experiences?
Oh my gosh, so many. I saw Taylor Trench. I had seen Evan Hansen and I loved it, but I saw Taylor on his opening night when he went in and replaced Ben, and did he replace Ben or no? I don't know. Whenever he went,
We were in the mix somewhere.
um, my big experiences are seeing friends that I know well completely not be them on stage. I felt that way seeing Eden and Megan do Wicked out here in LA. Like they peed on those roles for me, and I was like, don't need to see anybody. Like I loved it. And seeing Taylor do Darren Hansen, and when he did Curious Incident, it was incredible. Yeah, it's always seeing friends. What else? Well, you know what? There have been like non-Broadway things that I just
Yeah.
nuts. I love there's a Cirque show in Vegas, that's all water, that I was like, this is incredible. Harry Potter, I went with Sierra and we saw the two-parter.
Yeah.
And the magic in that was unbelievable. That was one of my favorite things I've ever seen. I am the wrong person to ask because I love everything.
That's
Like
right.
I really am that, like, buy the t-shirt at the merch and buy that. Like I love all of it. Hubs and I saw Hamilton really early on and knew right away. We were like, this is this is gonna change everything. But yeah, I kind of love everything.
Yeah. Well, do you have any like top theater things that you did?
Hunchback for sure was up there. I mean, I love I love all of them. I love that I get to do Adelaide a lot. She's my favorite. And Audrey, I love. And Hunchback was definitely up there though. Zorro will always be number one. Always. I just loved her, that role, and that show so much. So I think that's number one. But then, yeah, a bunch of regional stuff, which just is the best.
Yeah.
Looking back, doing Whose Holidays scared the shit out of me.
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask you about that because
Back on it, I'm so happy I did because I love her as well and loved that show. But doing it was very frightening and scary.
I remember after we did the understudy and like, we were still trying to figure out like how to do reading. Like we were very green to all that. And I was like, oh, maybe you want to do it for the holiday for us. And your like eyes like glazed over and you were like, no. But then they ended up like releasing the
Yeah,
video somewhere. And I did watch it and it was
yeah.
incredible. I can't, I see, I did my research and I think we just talked about so many things, but you were nominated for a Drama Desk Award for it as well for
Yeah.
solo
Yeah.
performance.
Yeah. I loved that show. It was
Super
so fun.
fan of all of your things.
Yeah. No, I loved that. Yeah, but again, like I love, I mean, there have been very few shows that I have not enjoyed being in. And
Mm,
there are some,
yeah,
but luckily they weren't long runs. So
yeah. Any dream roles that you have? I mean, we talked about
yeah.
Mom. News.
So yeah. I really want to do King George. I want to, but I want to be the first woman to do it. I don't want to be like the fifth woman.
Would also like to play King George because I feel like I can, but I can definitely see Leslie Margherita as
Um,
I'm shocked they haven't put a female in there somewhere.
I'm shocked. And I have been asked to send in things and they just haven't done it yet. So it's on the radar. It's just it hasn't happened yet. Uh Dream roles that I haven't done. I really, really wanted to do Evita, but that probably maybe happen in a regional theater. I love Ava so much. I really want to do her. I really would love to do Kiss of the Spider Woman. Um, would love to do Aurora in that. I would love to do Nine. I would love to do Sarah Agina in Nine.
Which character is that in
Would
nine?
be Italian.
Oh, nice. Did, I took an acting for the musical stage class in college and I was given a song from nine and everyone's like, oh, is it this song? I was like, no, it was the song his wife sang, Be on Your Own.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
everybody thought it was the fuck, what's that song? Like the soprano song.
Oh, Unusual Way.
Yeah, everybody thought it was Unusual Way, but Be on Your Own, like you're belting the first note. It was awesome.
Yeah, I would love to do Fred in Once Upon a Mattress. Everything else I've gotten to do regionally. I've done Spamalot, I've done
Mhm.
uh, you know, Damn Yankees. Like I would love to do those on a longer run, but
Yeah,
I've been so lucky getting to do all those roles. Oh, I'd like to do Dolly. I'd like to do Dolly in a
yeah.
bit. There are some roles coming up, like as I'm aging into them that I'm very excited to get to do. For sure, Mama Rose. Um, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, but we'll see.
Is there any male roles, like opposite gender roles that you would want to do?
Besides King George, no,
Okay.
no. There are so many kick-ass female roles. King George is kind of it. Uh, yeah, no. There's nothing that male-wise that interests me.
Fine.
There are so many female roles that I feel like could need a new take on, or too many, too many.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't.
yeah. I forgot to ask you this earlier because I feel like this is something that we talked about. And again, not to keep up bringing the reading that we did, but I think during the Q&A, we talked about why you guys wanted to do the reading. And I think somebody mentioned that they got excited when they saw the word play,
Mhm.
because I think it's the stigma that musical theater actors have where they don't get seen as much for straight plays because people in their heads think, oh, musical theater performer. Do you want to talk a little to that? Because you also have like so many film and television credits that I don't know if that's like a hindrance as well for you with like doing straight plays or if you're offered them or not or
I
what.
mean, the thing I just did with Tony Danza was a straight play.
Mhm.
I, it's so funny, like Los Angeles, I get to do straight dramatic roles all the time. Like I was saying, I did that play that was so incredible that was Steven Spinella and Jonathan Cake and Mike Nichols had produced it. And
Yeah.
it, you know, so I get the chance to do that. In New York, you get very stereotyped in New York. And oddly, TV and film doesn't do that to me. I mean, I spent a season on Homeland and I went into audition for something for theater and they were like, this is a drama, just so you know. And I was like, I just spent a year on Homeland. Like,
Mm.
it's so weird. You just kind of roll your eyes and go, uh-huh, uh-huh. Because people think that you can only do one thing. And especially after Wormwood and Dames at Sea, people just think you're like this huge muppet. And you're like, yeah, I'm really good at that, but I can
Yeah.
also do the other stuff. And film and TV, I get to do kind of all of it. I mean, the thing I just shot was not funny at all.
Yeah.
So but yeah, definitely in New York, it's harder to do plays. I get to do them out here. Although the play that I had workshopped with, the Tony Danza one, I had been workshopping for a while, and it's incredible. And it depends also on like who the creatives are. If it's a director who's like, no, 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 I know she does this.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely being seen for like musicals and plays that are dramatic when people think that you're only one thing is really hard. It's very difficult. Unless you have a casting director that's like your personal champion, which some people do, but it just it's hard to kind of, but the thing is, it's not impossible, and it takes one thing for somebody to see. Like I did a TV show like that aired like a year ago, and somebody was like, "Oh my God, I had no idea you did that." And you're like, "Uh-huh,
Mhm.
yep, isn't that great?" And then that changed their perception of me. It just takes one thing, but it's frustrating to fight to be seen, and you just have to like keep fighting, keep whether that's your agents or you. I'm a big proponent of fighting for yourself, asking, getting as much information about projects and things, seeing who you know, if there's somebody that you know on the team, reaching out to them, because the worst that somebody can say is no. I can't tell you how many jobs I've gotten on my own.
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
Yeah. I agree with that too. I mean, even when trying to get people to come onto the podcast, I would tell people like, you reach out to the agents, you reach out to the managers, you reach out to publicists, you reach out to like the person themselves if they have their information. And I say like the worst thing the person can say is no. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Like, and then you're not like next. Like I
Yeah.
always say everything happens for a reason. They said no. All right, wasn't meant to be. Move on. Next.
And half the time, if you're like going through somebody's agent, you'll because that's happened before to me with some stuff where it gets lost with
Yeah.
all the people, agents and whatever. We don't even hear about it because they just forgot, or
Yeah.
you know, gets lost. So yeah, I'm a big, if I know someone, I'm not going to do a cold like,
Yeah.
I should be this. But if I know somebody that's working on it, be like, hey, just raising my hand.
Yeah.
Um, there's stuff coming down. Like I want to be Mother Gothel if there is a Tangled musical. And
I can't tell you how many times I have watched you do that song at that like whatever you were doing with Taylor Lautner. Like you were so perfect. Like I cannot picture anybody else doing that because
well, but
you're
it's one
talking
of
about
those,
doing the
I,
stage production of it.
I know, but it's one of those things where they, have heard like, oh, they want something different. And I was like, okay, well, does that mean I can't come in? And a lot of times it does when they're like, no, it's not you. We want somebody that's more, whatever. But we'll see. But I like, that is something where like, I know that that should be me. So I have alerted everyone possible that I want to have a shot at it. That's all I want. I just want a shot at it. And if
Yeah.
they don't like it after that, that's fine. But a lot of stuff's nowadays you don't even get the shot, which is tough. And for those coming up, it's even rougher because it bounces down. Like if these people aren't getting seen, then when those people aren't getting seen, it's a weird time, um, because everybody is worried about their jobs
Yeah.
because of the state of everything. So, and it's always that way with TV too. People that are doing guest stars on TV are like movie stars, where you're like, well, those are my jobs, but now if they're not working and they're taking these jobs, it's just trickle down.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I'm a big fan though of at least shooting your shot,
Yeah.
lotto, because otherwise,
I shot my shot with someone on Instagram the other day and I wasn't even that attracted to them. And I'm like, you know what? Why the fuck not? I
I
have
know.
nothing else going on. I'm not on a dating app. I'm going to shoot my shot. Not attracted to you. Don't even find you funny as a comedian, but why the fuck not?
Yeah.
You know,
Honestly, at the end, who cares? Who
I agree.
cares?
Yeah. And again, like everything happens for a reason. And like if that role wasn't meant for you, like it wasn't, and then you know what? It can come back around to you at some point.
And for me, I'm usually like I would say like fourth or fifth choice. I'm
Mhm.
not even kidding. People have passed and then it goes down and down. And does that make me any more bummed that I got a role? Nope. Because nobody else knows that. It's the thing at one of my pet peeves is like bitchy people being like, oh, I was offered that. All right, well, you're not doing it. You're not getting the money that I'm getting. Great, good for you. And people always say that to just assert like dominance over someone. And it's such a shitty thing to say because oftentimes, like, somebody wanted another person for name value or whatever, or,
Yeah.
but if it comes down and it's me, great.
Yeah.
Great. I don't care what choice I was, because I'm the choice now.
Yeah. And you're the one doing the job and the other person
Yeah.
isn't for whatever reason.
But things
Okay.
come back around. Things come back around. There was something very recently that I really wanted that I was devastated that wasn't happening, and it came back around. Like you never know. You just don't know. So,
Yeah.
that's when auditioning and letting go is the
Mhm.
most important.
Yeah.
And especially letting go of crap auditions, because I tank so much and no one remembers.
Yeah.
Nobody, when I was younger, I'd be like, oh my God, Brittany tells you you'll never see me again. They don't remember.
Yeah.
They know, or they know. Like
Yeah.
if you get
Yeah.
it.
I mean, you'll remember.
Yeah, but
They're
they
like,
won't.
they're so busy. They see so many people that, I mean, at least you hope they don't remember. That's what we tell
Or they
ourselves.
don't, that doesn't make them think you suck.
Yeah.
They just, you probably weren't right. If you crack and you are so right for something, or if you aren't great, but you are so right, they're going to work with you.
Yeah.
Like it is, if you're right, you're right. And if you're not, there's nothing, even if you were perfect in an audition, if you're not right, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah. And there's also like, you can be so perfect for something in your head or what have you,
Yeah.
but the person who is the casting director or the director just might, like, I can't even tell you, like, again, like, not to keep bringing up these readings, but I would like, not like debates, but when we talk about like casting people and I was trying to figure out like, oh, should we cast it? And they would be like, how about this person? I was like, no, I don't see them in that part.
Yeah.
And but the other person did. And that doesn't lessen the person's value as a performer or whether or not they can do the role. It's just not who I envisioned for the part.
Right. And you also have to remember, especially on Broadway and most places now, at a final callback, there are probably 50 other people in the room that are investors or, whatever. Everybody gets to say. It's amazing that anybody gets a job because of so many people that have to agree. There is not one person that is like a dictator that gets the end all be all say. And if there are those productions, usually those productions tank.
Yeah.
Like it is a group effort to cast by the time you've gotten to the end.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to be on board. And that's very hard because you might look like somebody's ex and they're like, I can't, you don't know. So I'm always amazed when I get a job.
Yeah.
No matter where.
Well, with that being said, are you ready for the Inside the Actor Studio questions?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Ready? What is your favorite word?
So many.
You can say all of them. It's fine. You can have more than one favorite.
I mean, the one I use the most is rad. I love rad. It like is like it's rad. It's
That's the
rad.
Californian in you, not the New
Yeah,
Jersey.
that's very much.
Somebody from
I
New
love
Jersey
rad.
is going to be like rad.
Yeah, yeah. I love the word cacophony. I love um I love the word I love shitbird.
Should be the title of your YA first novel, Shitbird.
Shitbird.
Shitbird. And it
I love
takes
saying
place in like a British colony, just so they can say shitbird in a British accent.
forge. I say forge in that in my
In
things
your
that I
TED
know.
Talk.
Forge,
Yeah.
such a good word. Forge. I don't know. I love words. So there's too many. Too many.
So we'll move on. So
Okay.
this is a good one. What is your least favorite word?
Ugh. Moist.
Okay. What turns you on? It's a great face, by the way.
Uh ambition.
What turns you off?
Apathy. Um Negativity.
What is your favorite curse word?
So many again.
Please cuss away. I forgot to tell you before we started. Like, I always tell people before we started, you might be like, we do this, we do that. We don't talk politics, and you can curse. So feel free to
Oh, I
as
mean,
many
I'm a big cursor.
go for it.
I mean, I often say fuck me all the time. What's happening? Like, fuck me, oh, fuck me, fuck my life, fuck my life.
Mhm.
This big one. Again, shitbird. Great.
Shitbird.
Great.
You had to pronounce,
Hashtag
you had to
shitbird.
say it the way that you say it, shitbird, where it sounds
Bird.
a little British.
Shitbird.
Shitbird.
Um, yeah, it's got to be like, fuck my life.
What
Uh-huh.
sound, what sound or noise do you love?
My dog's beep, 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 like his feet on the ground. Pitter patter.
Yeah. What
And
sound?
rain. Oh,
Oh,
pitter patters. Pitter patters. Yeah.
pitter patter and rain. Good combination. Matt, what about him pitter pattering in the rain?
Oh, he would never because he hates the rain.
Okay.
Well, he just refuses. Refuses. Yeah.
He's not alone. A lot of dogs are like that. What sound or noise do you hate?
Um, the sound right before a car crash, like this, the skidding
Mhm.
crash. Um, yeah.
I feel like we covered this, but what profession other than yours would you like to attempt?
Writer. Writer, not writer, not woo, but like writer.
Not a
Yeah.
not a not a Peloton bike.
Like yeehaw! Or like, yeah,
Oh, I
no.
was thinking like a bike rider. See,
Oh,
that's
or
where
that. Yeah.
I'm totally
Yeah.
a writer with the W. What profession would you not like to do?
Oof. Sanitation.
Too much shitbirds happening
Too
there.
many shitbirds. Yeah.
Too
Ugh.
much shitbird. And
Anything in the sanitation
yeah.
trash. Mm-mm.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
That was rad. Like like something like, yeah, that. And I mean, honestly, and it's happy, but your family and all of your dogs are here.
That's lovely. And as Mr. Lipton would say, here are your students. And then they'd like ask the
Oh
question.
yeah.
Yeah. I actually like not to be that person, but I was actually featured on one of those episodes
Oh
asking Matt Damon a question.
my God. Matt Damon for the longest time was the love of my life.
Oh, what
And
happened?
I no, I still love him, but like when he was young, like, and I was young, I was gonna, that was it for me. And then one of my managers knew that I like loved him,
Mhm.
and he was on the Tonight Show. My manager arranged it so that I went to the Tonight Show set and I met him,
Mhm.
and I had like a black turtleneck on. He had a black turtleneck, and I was so nervous meeting him that I was like, "Look, we're twins." And he was like, "What?" It's like, some turtlenecks," and that's all I said.
If it makes you feel any better, I feel like you would appreciate this. So inside the actor's studio, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna ask a question. And I was like, oh, well, he talked about he wants to do directing. Somebody asked about directing. Okay, I can't do that. I was gonna ask him something else. Somebody asked something else. And then I was like, I remember him and or Greg Kinnear talking about when they did the movie Stuck on You, how they made this pact that they would never go number two when they were in the Siamese costume together. So I asked him
He probably
about
loves that question.
I asked him about the movie Stuck on You. And I can't remember, I think it was like a two-parter where it was like, I think it was like, what was it like working with the Farrelly brothers? Because,
Right.
like they're a little
Yeah.
controversial, like their older
Yeah.
films, like Shallow Hal, like when it first came out, but like now, however many years later. And then I was like, what was it also like literally working so close to Greg Kinnear? And so like that question actually like made him laugh and smile. And he turned to James Lipton. He's like, why did you leave that movie out? But the producer came up to me because when I was in college, I worked at a theater and they had just moved the Actors Studio's MFA program to PACE.
Oh
So
yeah.
studio was for the MFA students, but like, people got away with asking questions. So I was an usher at the theater. So like the front of house, like the production staff knew me. So like after the show, she came up to me to take the mic and she was like, that was a great question. Because all the questions were just so heavy and so
Yeah.
serious. And I was
Yeah.
like,
And somebody like
we
him, like,
stuck on you.
yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like that was perfect for him. No, I love, I'm especially with like when they were younger. My father's family's from Boston, so I have a very was wearing a Red Sox sweatshirt. Yeah, I love him and Ben, the younger years, and still now. But
Did you watch their Duncan Kings commercial?
of course,
Yeah.
yeah, I love
And,
it.
like Matt Damon was just on a show and he was like, "Oh yeah, you know how I said I'd do anything for you? Like this is
That's
anything."
ad lived.
Yeah. And he's like, "No, I 100% said that to him and he kept it in the commercial." So like I just feel like a full circle moment would be like me working with Matt Damon. Because it's so funny too, because people talk about like, oh, those people who ask the questions on Actors Studio, like, where are their careers now? And then you have like Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper, yeah, Bradley
And
Cooper, yeah.
yeah, Bradley Cooper. And he even was a guest on the show, which was pretty cool. That was
Oh yeah, they showed him like his
yeah,
question. Yeah, so cute.
yeah. So
But
as we're towards the end, I do, if when I remember to do this, I always
yeah,
ask, why do you think theater is important? If you can even think of something. If not, we can move on.
yeah, I it for many will be the only outside view of the world that people will get
Mhm.
for many. And so I think it's important to show whether that's a fantasy world or a different political view. I think it's all important. I think it's just I think for learning, for growing as a species, I think like, for somebody stuck in, I don't know, middle America that would never see anything outside of what they know, and a show comes through that maybe makes them question some of their morals or values or challenges you, I think it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add, ask, problems, questions, concerns, any advice, what you're doing next,
Oh my
anything
gosh.
end?
I have a lot of stuff coming up I'm very excited about, but I can't say.
Yeah, I know. Well, we won't mention it. Don't worry.
Yeah. No, I am doing some really cool workshops of stuff, shows take years
Yeah.
to go. But yeah, I just keep going. Just keep going. And I tell this to everybody. If this is what you love to do, no matter what facet you're in, acting, behind the scenes, whatever,
Mhm.
all equally important. Just keep going, keep doing it. And ask for help. Ask for help if you're trying to break into the business. Again, if you know somebody, if you want to be working wardrobe, just connect the dots. And it may be a really long line of dots.
Mhm.
People want to help.
Yeah.
Um, and I found that like, even if I can't help them, I don't mind somebody reaching out and, a friend of mine being like, I don't know, do you know anybody in this? And chances are somebody does.
Yeah.
So if it's something that you love and want to get involved in, ask for help. The acting side of it's harder because you can't get somebody a job. But if you are a designer or want to do anything involved in the other aspects of theater, ask.
Mhm. I agree. And also people just want to work, which I've discovered during the pandemic, because that's what everyone's like, people just want to fucking work. And just like ask and
That's what I want to say. Work is work is work is work is work
yeah.
is work. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, Leslie, thank you for coming on. You can stay on after the recording. We talked for so
I
long.
know my dog is like, I need to go. He's like, I need to be.
Yeah, I was like, wait, do I also have to pee? But thank you for coming on. I'm just so happy like we finally got to do this.
Yay. I know, me too.
Yeah, and thank you all for listening and follow Leslie and get her album.
Thanks. Please.
Oh.